There's the green light. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, February 21, 2012 meeting of the Edina City Council and the Edina Housing and Redevelopment Authority. Roll call, please. Ms. Mankin?
Member Bennett.
Here.
Member Brindle.
Here.
Member Sprague.
Here.
Member Swenson.
Here.
Mayor Hovland.
Here. We have before us a prepared agenda. Is there a motion to approve the meeting agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, we approve the meeting agenda. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. Next, we have the adoption of the consent agenda. Is there anyone on the council that wishes to remove an item from the consent agenda?
Yes, Your Honor.
Member Bennett.
I would like to remove item 4H, please.
4H, thank you. I would like to remove D and E. Anyone else? With the exception of D, E, and H, is there a motion to approve the balance of the consent agenda?
Second.
Moved and seconded, we approve the balance of the consent agenda with the exclusion of D, E, and H. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. So we're on to D, which was one that I asked to be pulled. And it was in reviewing these documents involved with the Edina Emerald Energy Program that a couple of questions popped up. And one was that is the specific loan to Murphy Automotive required to be part of the agreement with the purchaser of the revenue bond? Because it's on a private placement basis.
I believe that it is. Do you have the answer to this?
I don't. I couched it a couple different ways for myself, but one of the questions in reading the agreement with a private placement operator was that came to, at least to my mind, was that we don't have anywhere in the agreements. I don't see a specification that the loan proceeds, that the proceeds of the bond need to be used to fund the loan to Murphy Automotive as part of the bond sale, or alternatively, do we need to require the use of the bond proceeds relative to Murphy Automotive? I mean, I guess I'd ask the same question a slightly different way, because I see no reference anywhere to the connection to Murphy Automotive and the solar project relative to the bank in Sonoma County, California.
I believe, Your Honor, that issue was addressed in the agreement that the city and Murphy Automotive made at the previous meeting. But I can tell you that this document was drafted by legal counsel who's been assisting us with this, Stephanie Gailey from the Faegre law firm, and it is the first such agreement in the state. But she did prepare it for the council tonight. So
all right, yeah, and I think she did some terrific work here, and I'm prepared to recommend adoption of the resolution. But it strikes me that at least maybe after the fact, before these agreements get executed, the bond purchase agreement, that we look at whether or not there has to be some tie-in to Murphy Automotive,
certainly,
relative to use of the bond proceeds, or that the purchase of the bond is conditioned on the loan to Murphy, I guess is a better way to put it. So, having said that, did that prompt any queries from anybody else on the council? All right, I'll move resolution 2012-29.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. The next matter I had that we pulled was also one I asked to be pulled, is E, the resolution 2012-34. The concept is important, that we're supporting the request. Put it a different way. The Metropolitan Council is requesting that $25 million in 2012 bonding monies be retained in the state bonding bill that's presently before the legislature. The resolution itself, the resolving clause says that the City of Edina strongly urges all Hennepin County state legislators to support the Metropolitan Council's bonding request for Southwest Light Rail Transit, and to work to make sure that the state of Minnesota continues to provide resources for this crucial regional infrastructure. My question to the council is, and a suggested modification is that we delete the words Hennepin County, and we urge all state legislators who might be voting on this to vote in favor of retaining this $25 million in essential monies for preliminary engineering for Southwest LRT in the bonding bill, in the state bonding bill.
I'll move the matter with that amendment to language.
And I'll second it.
All right. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Carried. All right, now we're on to Member Bennett, Resolution 2012-35, the feasibility study.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. I understand that since the completion of this feasibility study, and it's very helpful to be receiving it in advance of a meeting, given the volume and the complexity of this project, volume of material, I do understand that there has been some additional material received recently, including correspondence from the school district, and I'm just asking that the feasibility study be updated in a way sufficient to allow council members to have adequate time to review, and then also members of the public.
Councilmember Bennett and council members, yes. In fact, I had a discussion with the city engineer today about that very fact, and we are going to be updating it with that and other pertinent updates.
Great, thank you. Then I will move the matter.
Thank you.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded we adopt Resolution 2012-35, receiving the feasibility study for the Tracy Avenue roadway reconstruction project, which we will hear on March 6th. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. Now, we are moving on to that portion of the agenda which involves special recognitions and presentations. I grabbed Chief Long right before the meeting started, and I said, is there anything else I need to know other than bringing you up? And he said, no. You don't need to know who the person is, Officer of the Year. He's going to tell us in short order. So it's a need-to-know basis, and I didn't need to know. And so maybe some of you know out there, all our officers that are here, which is terrific to see so many people here. And Chief Long, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I have about a 5-minute presentation that I just want to give a little bit of background on the award, and then I'll present the award. But I will start with my prepared statements. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, city staff, members of the community, and guests. Tonight I have the honor of awarding the first annual Mike Satari Officer of the Year Award, sponsored by the Edina Crime Prevention Fund. For those of you that are not familiar with the Crime Fund, it is an independent corporation that is funded solely by contributions made by the public. These contributions channel over $55,000 a year into police department programs. Without these funds, the Edina Police Department would not have our K-9 program, nor would we be able to continue programs such as the Police Explorers, Night to Unite, and Bike Patrol. The Crime Fund even supplies funding for transportation to the Edina Summer Park program and paid for the Red Cross to put on a babysitting course for youth who would otherwise be unable to afford it. The Crime Fund also sponsors rewards for information leading to the arrest and conviction of certain crimes that occur in Edina. These awards are credited for leading to many arrests. Just last year, within hours of announcing a reward, we had 3 tips that led us to a violent robbery suspect. Again, without the generous donations to the fund, this type of arrest may never have occurred. While exploring ways to recognize some of the good work of the Edina Police Department, the Crime Fund decided to recognize the outstanding work of one officer each year with an annual award. At the same time, the Crime Fund was looking for a way to honor our former police chief, Mike Satari. Chief Satari believed in a strong work ethic. During his 10 years as chief, he converted the department from officers that were reactive to officers that were proactive. Thus, the Crime Fund created the Mike Satari Officer of the Year Award. Tonight, I have the honor of presenting the first annual Officer of the Year Award. Nominations were solicited from within the police department and also from the community at large. We received 15 nominations that were presented to the Crime Fund for selection. The criteria used for this award looked at a variety of things that may have set the officer apart from others, such as traffic safety, going above and beyond what is expected, special or specific calls, and finally, the advancement of the department in a positive manner. Because of the timing of the start of this award, we accepted nominations for 2010 and 2011. A brief synopsis of some of the nominations included an officer helping a new immigrant shovel her way out of a ditch on a dark, snowy night, making a lasting first impression of what law enforcement is all about in America. Another officer was a team leader of the Hennepin County Weapons of Mass Destruction team, which seems like a pretty testosterone-filled job, yet he handled a very sensitive, fatal motor vehicle accident, one of the few that we have had in the last several years. Another officer wrote over 3,000 citations, 1,000 more than any other officer in the state, again showing Edina residents that Edina officers don't sit idle. This same officer has also spent years as a member of the Minnesota Law Enforcement Memorial Association, which provides ceremonial representation for those officers that have died in the line of duty. This officer, who has dedicated so much of his time to this memorial association, is also one of the officers that helped put an end to the shooting rampage of the bank robber who shot Officer Blood and shot at several of our other officers. Another one of our officers nominated is a school resource officer who commits her time to helping youth in our community and goes beyond what a typical officer is required to do. The person who nominated her stated that she is someone who genuinely cares for students and their well-being. She often acts as a school counselor, listening to their problems and offering wonderful advice. She also leads our award-winning Police Explorer program. Another one of our officers works overnights, and she helped lead another sellout of our annual safety camp. Despite working the overnight shift, she coordinated with other city staff one of the more successful safety camps in the metropolitan area. And her actions speak louder than her words. In addition to just teaching safety to youth, she made 55 DWI arrests and arrested another 58 people for a variety of other crimes. One more reason you can sleep soundly in Edina. This is just an overview of some of the nominations we received and a sampling of the work we do. The officer who was selected as the 2011 Officer of the Year received 2 separate nominations. I would ask that you hold any applause, but I would ask Officer Joel Moore to step to the front of the room. You can just stand over here. Officer Moore exemplifies the work that goes on behind the scenes, yet this type of work happens more often than not. In 2009 and 2010, Officer Moore was assigned to a plainclothes proactive assignment in our commercial district located in southeast Edina. I'll come back to that in just 1 minute. But in 2011, Officer Moore returned back to a traditional patrol shift. He put his previous experience to work by making several additional arrests and taking career offenders off Edina streets. One example was on May 19, 2011. He made a traffic stop on armed robbery suspects and assault suspects who perpetrated a drug and cash ripoff in the area of 58th and Wooddale. Officer Moore, through his diligence in again searching a car that had already been searched, located 3 bags of marijuana and 2 handguns in a door panel which had been modified to accommodate those items. By returning back to his work as a plainclothes officer in our commercial district, he made 411 arrests that resulted in clearing 556 crimes. One particular arrest occurred on January 10, 2010. Officer Moore identified a financial transaction card fraud in progress. It was his experience and keen eye that drew his attention to this transaction. A quick thinking Officer Moore was able to determine that this group of people had committed a similar crime the day before. Cutting through the chase of a difficult task in arresting these people, once done, he found several names, dates of births, social security card numbers, and credit card numbers in the suspect's possession. In many police agencies, because of the significant hours needed to investigate this type of crime, the case would have stopped right there. A report would have been written and the suspects would have been referred to court for a simple credit card fraud that oftentimes ends up with probation and no jail time. However, Officer Moore is an advocate for victims of this type of crime. He found that many of the stolen identities found in possession of the suspect lived in New York. Officer Moore was able to reach the victims and determined all had indeed had their identities compromised. In the following weeks, Officer Moore was able to identify over $500,000 in fraud. Officer Moore enlisted the help of the Minnesota Financial Crimes Task Force, in which Edina has a detective assigned, and he used them to execute search warrants that he had drawn up during his investigation. These warrants were served with the assistance of the U.S. Postal Inspector's Office, IRS agents, and the United States Secret Service, along with several other law enforcement agencies. In the end, Officer Moore's keen eye and relentless work resulted in many additional arrests, with the total loss expected to reach in the millions worldwide. All started by an officer in Edina, Minnesota, that believes in working hard and making a difference for the residents, businesses, and visitors of Edina, Minnesota. This case is still active and has resulted in over 170 arrests nationwide. As a police officer, Mike Satari made aggressive traffic enforcement and arrests of drunk drivers a priority, making the streets safer for the motoring public. Officer Moore has made it his mission to arrest and aid in the prosecution of those who would jeopardize public safety by preying on the public and retail establishments, and this carries on Chief Satari's example. Officer Moore, because of your dedication, hard work, and for helping thousands of victims throughout the entire United States, I am honored to present you with the first annual Mike Satari Officer of the Year Award. Congratulations.
statement prepared, but I would like to thank the members of the Edina Crime Prevention Fund for sponsoring this award. It's a great honor to be honored in this way in front of my coworkers and peers. I'd also like to thank my partners at Southdale. Without their help, what I was able to accomplish out there wouldn't have been possible. Who's also present, Officer Jason Bear and Officer Brandon Kuski, my partners during 2009 and 2010. Just one example, Officer Bear's assistance during the holiday season. You generally get busy, and I'd be there by myself. He would actually change his schedule to come and help me out on the weekends because it got to be so busy down there. So thank you to Jason for that. And I'd also like to thank my family for all the time that I've been away, sometimes being over-invested in my job, but I think they understand, and they've been very supportive. So I want to thank my wife and family for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You hang we should have the whole council come down. If you wouldn't mind, please.
Family picture? No? Okay. I didn't.
Reporter here too.
Oh, that's impossible. That's just impossible. And the more you try, the louder they get. Yeah.
Well, we have, on the next portion of our agenda, 3 public hearings this evening, the first of which involves a request by St. Patrick's Catholic Church for a temporary on-sale intoxicating liquor license for a singular event. Chief?
Good evening again, Mayor, members of the City Council. The Church of St. Patrick has applied for a temporary intoxicating liquor license for their St. Patrick's Day celebration event. The event will be held on March 17th, 2012, from 6:15 p.m. to 9 p.m. in the St. Patrick's Social Hall and adjoining kitchen. The applicants are eligible for the liquor license and have submitted plans to meet the special requirements. In addition, as they always do, they have gone beyond these requirements by not allowing anyone under 21 to serve alcohol. Minnesota law only mandates that servers be 18 years old. The church has hired Edina police officers to provide security, and they've met all the requirements, and I would recommend that the license be issued.
Thank you. Questions for the chief? Any of the council members? All right. This is a matter that we have addressed in the past. It is a public hearing matter, and I'm going to open this up for a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to come forward and comment regarding this matter? Seeing no one coming forward and hearing nothing, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. Do we have a motion?
I would move agenda item 6A, St. Patrick's Catholic Church temporary on-sale intoxicating liquor license.
Second.
All right. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Carried. The next public hearing that we have in front of us this evening is the proposed distribution of the CDBG, or the Community Development Block Grant Program, monies that we receive as part of a federal entitlement program. Joyce Repia has this matter for us, along with a recommendation as to how we should use those monies this year.
I need to say publicly that I serve on the Community Action Partnership Board, which is a recipient of that grant. I'm not paid for that action, nor do I get anything from them. Attorney Knudsen, are you comfortable with me opining on this?
Yes, I'm very comfortable.
Thank you.
So Member Swenson may both participate and vote on this matter. Is that correct? Thank you. Joyce.
Mayor Hovland and members of the council, the Community Development Block Grant Program, better known as CDBG, is a federally funded program which is administered by HUD, who in turn charges Hennepin County to oversee the distribution of funds to its communities. These funds are to be directed toward improving housing opportunities and providing a suitable living environment for persons with low and moderate incomes. Projects which may be funded with the CDBG monies are either public service or community development related. Edina's 2002 allotment for planning purposes is $110,285, a 40% decrease from the 2010 budget of $173,786, which you used last year when you initially established the 2011 budget. With fears of a potential 62% decrease in the CDBG funding, the final 2011 budget was announced in June of 2011 after encountering several reductions for a new Edina total of $145,365, a $28,421 reduction, or 16%. As provided for in the 2011 resolution, the city chose to distribute the reduction in funding evenly to all of the requesting agencies. You can see in the chart before you that the 2012 preliminary budget that you are reviewing today is on the far right, and it does demonstrate the $110,285. And it is a steep reduction in the allocation, and it was arrived at by Hennepin County using a formula for all of the communities that within Hennepin County, and it's the first time that they have used the 2010 census data to come up with these numbers. And what they did is they weighed each community's population along with the percentage of overcrowded housing and poverty, and the poverty was weighted double. And so cities who had the higher level of overcrowded housing and poverty received more funds, and consequently Edina had a reduction in funding. As in the past, funding for the public service agencies may not exceed 15% of the budget, which means $16,543 is available to assist the following agencies who have applied for funding: Senior Community Services Home Program, which stands for household and outside maintenance for the elderly. They provide housekeeping and chore services and outside maintenance assistance to Edina seniors who pay for services on a sliding fee scale. We are proposing a distribution of $9,618. Community Action Partnership for Suburban Hennepin, also known as CAPSH, provides full cycle housing programs to include foreclosure prevention, homebuyer education, homebuyer counseling, reverse mortgage counseling, and housing rehabilitation and maintenance assistance. A $4,700 distribution is proposed for them. And Homeline provides tenant advocacy services for Edina renters facing critical housing situations with landlords' foreclosure, as well as situations that threaten their housing security. A distribution of $2,225 is proposed. The funding proposed for CAPSH and Homeline is consistent with the funds these agencies received in the final 2011 budget, and this is in lieu of proposing that 24% reduction for their funding. The proposed funding for Senior Community Services Home Program is $5,262 less than in 2011, and this reduction enables CAPSH and Homeline to continue serving their clients with the same funds received in 2011. While the funds proposed for senior community services are 35% less than in 2011, they will be requesting the remainder of their funds to meet their 2012 needs from the Edina Housing Foundation, as they have since the year 2000. Moving on to the community development portion of the budget, which consists of the remaining 85%, or $93,742 of the budget, staff recommends directing $41,491 of these funds to the ongoing Rehabilitation of Private Property Program, which provides deferred repayment loans of up to $30,000 to make structural improvements to owner-occupied single-family homes. Eligibility for the program is based on a household's income established by HUD, and the program is overseen by Hennepin County. The remaining $52,251 is recommended to go toward West Hennepin Affordable Housing Land Trust, or WALT, for their Homes Within Reach Community Land Trust program, which will assist them to purchase an 8th land trust home in Edina, reinforcing Edina's commitment to providing affordable housing opportunities in the community. Representatives from most of the requesting agencies are here this evening to answer any questions you may have, and I would be happy to as well.
Questions for Joyce? Senator Craig.
Senator Repia, I see that in the allocation reductions, Edina has the highest reduction. What are the allocation criteria they're using to make those reductions?
Well, Hennepin County uses the census data. They're using the population, and then they also weigh the overcrowding properties and the poverty, and they double weight the poverty for the communities. So it's kind of a formula of not only our population, but how our poverty and our overcrowding population fits within that formula compared to other Hennepin County communities.
So it's really about the amount of poverty in the city, because our population hasn't really fluctuated that much.
Correct. We've had a stable population, correct.
Okay. So in terms of our economy on a household level, we're doing better in the poverty department than some of these other cities, and hence a greater reduction.
That is correct, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. Member Bennett.
And to follow up on Member Sprague's question, it's not that need doesn't exist in the community, it's just that relative to the other communities with which Edina is being compared and evaluated, the need was assessed to be less than in these other communities.
Member Bennett, that is correct. It is quite a challenge to weigh. We definitely do have a need, yet these CDBG funds are for low and moderate, and they have to take a look at the entire county.
All right. And how does a resident find out about these organizations or these sources of potential help? Is there a single number or a single place in the city that
there's
someone
great
can go?
networking that goes on. Probably the number one place is our Edina Resource Center. And then CAPSH, people contact them, and they in turn will contact me if they want to know about the housing rehab program, and I then put them on to Hennepin County. So it's a great web and network that works together.
Thank you.
Member Brindle.
Just to follow on to that, and Joyce, thank you for the answers to my questions. And just a couple things, because I think some of these answers are informative. A follow-on to one of Joni's questions, and that is, how do people find out about it? Well, evidently they do, because there's a waiting list for programs like these. So the word is out there. The Edina Resource Center does get the word out there. So the system is working. When talking about the structural improvements, I asked specifically what are we looking for something in particular, and it's not, I hate my old shag carpeting. So it truly is structural.
That is correct.
And so the money is used as it is intended to be used and monitored by the county. So we have a good way of providing and monitoring to make sure that things are done as intended. So thank you so much for all your work.
You're welcome.
Other questions for Ms. Repia at this point in time? Member Sprague.
So just in terms of the agencies requesting the public services portion of the funds, it says these are entities we've supported for many years. Are there other applications that are made? I mean, are there other needs out there that are competing for this pool?
You know, there aren't, and being that these funds are so limited, that to bring other parties to the table would just diminish.
Dilute the impact.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Another question, Ms. Repia. Could you speak to the origin of the recommendations in each category?
Correct.
Staff
Well,
recommendations or?
Staff recommendations, correct.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Stand by. Going to open this matter up for public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to come forward and comment regarding this proposed use of CDBG money?
Hello, I'm Kitty Engel from Senior Community Services Home Program. I live at 15907 Cicerone Path in Rosemont, Minnesota. Mayor Hovland and council members, thank you for giving us an opportunity to present information about our program. As said before, household and outside maintenance is the name for the acronym HOME. And we have been around serving seniors in Edina for over 30 years. Our workers help seniors maintain their homes and be able to stay in their homes independently as long as possible because they do the chores that the seniors can no longer do. For instance, our skilled handymen help seniors by fixing leaky faucets, installing safety bars in bathrooms, and they can do something as simple as putting a light bulb on the ceiling because seniors no longer want to get up on a ladder. Our painters paint the inside and outside of homes, and it can really make a difference in the looks of a home. Our homemakers will help seniors with vacuuming, dusting, laundry, grocery shopping, and keep their homes neat and clean inside the home. We hire independent contractors to mow lawns or shovel snow, and we finally have some snow. Volunteers help with outdoor chores. Every spring and fall, they'll do raking and yard cleanup and wash windows. We recruit volunteers from all the communities that we serve. And we're very fortunate to have many youth that volunteer from the local high schools. And this always seems to be a win-win situation because the youth get to know some seniors and learn some things from the older population. And the seniors get to know there's some wonderful youth out there that can be caring and will help them with chores. A senior's home can look clean and great on the inside and outside. But not only does it help to keep up the Edina housing stock, keeping this community vital, but it also helps an older adult have a sense of pride. Home does ask clients to contribute toward the cost of their service based on their ability to pay. When we do employ volunteers to help, we do not ask clients to contribute. If a client needs a one-time repair or some lawn mowing and they just cannot afford anything, we try to get a volunteer to help them.
Ms. Engel, I hate to interrupt you, but and I should have told you this when you came up as a reminder that you'd have 3 minutes. And
Yes.
Your 3 minutes is up, so why don't you quickly tell us how many people you served in Edina last year, and then
We serve 90 residents of Edina.
90?
90.
Thank you. All right.
And thank
Any
you
other
very
questions
much.
for Ms. Engel?
I do.
Member Brindle?
Thank you. Kitty, as you were talking about some of the essential services, smoke detectors, the changing of batteries, carbon monoxide detectors, and the changing of batteries occurs to me. Is that something that your volunteers and workers do as well?
Our handymen do that all the time, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Ms. England? Thank you for coming this evening.
Thank you very much.
All right, I saw a gentleman over here that was heading up to the podium at the same time as Ms. Engel. Come on up.
Thank you, Mayor.
And just a gentle reminder again, you've got 3 minutes, and when you see the yellow light, you got 30 seconds to wrap up.
Well, I hope to take less than that.
All right.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Paul Bernberg. I'm the senior housing attorney at Homeline. Our executive director is on holiday today, so she sent me in her stead. I'll be very brief and then just take any questions you might have. We served exactly 100 Edina residents last year, nice round number. We expect to serve approximately the same this coming year. We made an application for $3,689, which represents what we think is our cost for running the tenant hotline for Edina, and we're certainly not complaining with staff recommending less than that given the budget crisis. You know, we get a lot of calls on a variety of things. I just outlined a couple things. We get a lot of calls from tenants whose landlords are going into foreclosure, and that's an area where, to some extent, the tenant's, quote, completely innocent, and a lot of times they think they have to get out right away. That's not the case. Our estimate is we saved them about $8,300 last year. There's one small mistake in what Ms. Kotleboy sent in. She wrote in that we had 10 infestation calls, 3. Actually, it was 8 because we called some of them bed bugs, which is the latest infestation, and that seems to be an increasing area where you get it, where again, I guess if there's somebody evil here, it's these little bugs which maybe don't have morality, but they take over for tenants, and we give them advice about their rights. So that's all I wanted to say. If anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them.
Let me inquire. Any questions for Mr. Bernberg at this point in time?
No, thank you.
All right.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mayor.
Bernberg.
Thank you, Council.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members. I am Scott Zemke from Community Action Partnership of Suburban Hennepin. We are asking for support for our full-cycle HUD-approved housing counseling agency. We have first-time homebuyer counseling and education to hopefully create who we think are much smarter and well-informed homebuyers, foreclosure prevention services to help mitigate the impacts of mortgage default on the community. Also reverse mortgage counseling for those seniors who want to use the equity in their home to stay in their home longer. And also rehab counseling for people who need a little help. Working with contractors and getting some rehab work done in their home. And that's in addition to the other services that Community Action Partnership does, energy assistance, free legal services, clinics, and a free tax assistance for all members of Hennepin, or all citizens of Hennepin County. So thank you for past support and for recommending us for further support, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
You're welcome. Thank you. Questions for Scott?
No, thank you.
Thanks for your good work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone here from West Hennepin Affordable Housing Land Trust? Joyce, you want to speak on that?
Janet Limbo was unable to attend the meeting, but I'd be happy to address any questions and hopefully answer them.
So the proposed funding there would allow them to purchase an 8th home in Edina.
That's correct, sir.
And then resell it. And for folks in the audience and folks at home, you might explain in a little bit more detail how that program works and some of the folks that have been able to purchase a home in Edina as a result of not having to buy the land and the house.
Correct. The West Hennepin Affordable Housing Land Trust, through their Homes Within Reach program, purchases a property, they rehab the property, and then they sell the home to the new home buyer, and they maintain ownership of the property. So when the transaction is taking place, the new buyers are buying only the home, and they have a 99-year lease on the property, and it makes home ownership affordable. And Ms. Limbo did ask me to let you know that although this proposed allotment is less than what they've had in the past, they plan on getting funding from other agencies, and they're going to shake the bushes and get more money, she said.
All right. Thank you. Member Bennett is cause you to think of something you wanted to ask about?
Well, looking at the timeline, the materials that were included in the packet, it appears that there are quite a few classes, orientations, and supports that are offered on that path to home ownership. Any comment on them? It just did seem like a nice amount of support.
There are.
for
These are people, it's to help them move into home ownership and really understand what they're getting into, and it makes for better homeowners. And down the road, if they do sell their home, this home will maintain, it'll stay within the land trust, and it will be sold to a new income-eligible party that will purchase only the home and will not purchase the land. So that's another beauty of this land trust program.
Seems to me in the past you've advised us that these homes have been purchased by teachers and other folks that are part of our community
Nurses,
working here.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And she checks with me prior to making a purchase to ensure that these homes are scattered throughout the community and they aren't on just one neighborhood, so it helps to disperse throughout the community as well.
And then just maybe a quick comment on the rehabilitation of private property. You're suggesting we hold $41,491 for that purpose. Is that something that we direct internally?
No, no longer. It ends up that Edina was the only community that was handling it in-house, and Hennepin County was doing the rehab program for every other community. So they have taken it over. They currently are working with 5 Edina homeowners, and they're at different stages, either in the application stage or just finishing up. And there is a waiting list for people waiting to participate in the program, too.
Mm-hmm. What types of property rehabilitation are we seeing?
Well, we're seeing a lot of new furnaces. We're seeing a lot of energy efficiency with new windows. That's been a real common request. Some drain tile and watery basements that are getting fixed. It's just really helping to maintain this housing stock, which we found is in really good shape. When we did our windshield survey for our comprehensive plan, we discovered that our housing stock is in very good shape. But there are people out there that are in need of just a little push, a little assistance, and these $30,000 for these loans can really help with that.
Good. Any other questions for Ms. Repia? Comments?
Just a follow-up question. Again, you said that those are loans for home maintenance and repair, not grants.
That is correct. It is a loan. However, if the homeowner lives in the property for 15 years, it reverts from a loan to a grant and nothing is owed.
Thank you.
All right, good. Anyone else wish to come forward and comment or inquire? Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, we close the public hearing. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. Do we have a motion regarding this matter?
I will move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the recommendations of staff with respect to the distribution of our community development block grant money. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. 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 Opposed say nay. Carried. And then the final public hearing we have this evening involves a proposed modification to the redevelopment plan for the Southeast Edina redevelopment plan and the proposed modification of the tax increment financing plan for the Centennial Lakes tax increment financing district. And Jessica Cook, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Hovland, members of the council. I'm Jessica Cook with Ellers, the city's financial advisor. And so the item being considered tonight, as was introduced, is a modification to the redevelopment project area and a modification to the existing Centennial Lakes tax increment financing district. The reason this is being brought forward is because the Centennial Lakes tax increment financing district provides a potential funding source for future redevelopment activities in the city. The district right now has cash that isn't obligated to redevelopment that occurred in the district. And because it is an older district and operating under older state statutes, there is the opportunity to use that resource for redevelopment elsewhere in the city. Now, usually when some action related to tax increment financing is being considered, it's done in conjunction with a redevelopment activity, a project like a building. And that isn't the case here, which I think can be kind of confusing. The reason this is coming forward now is because the modification, as I mentioned, would accomplish three things. One is that it would authorize where the tax increment that is in the district now and will be collected through 2014 can be spent. And it authorizes, or it restates the budget. So it isn't saying that we're going to collect more tax increment, but because tax increment is regulated by the state, we need to restate the budget in the tax increment plan so that it meets new reporting criteria from the state. So there's some urgency to do that before the next report is due in August. So that's one of the reasons it's coming forward. The second is, just as I mentioned, that the district is going to expire in 2014. And after 2014, the resource is still available, but it must be used in accordance with whatever the plan said on 12/31/2014. So this is an opportunity, if you so choose, to create this tool for the future for tax increment financing. The option that has been provided in the council packets shows a redevelopment project area. And do you have that, Scott, or can I put it here?
Yep. We can shoot down on it.
Okay. Section shows the existing project area setting. Thank you. So this hatch-marked section shows the existing project area, which is essentially the commercial area in the southeast part of the city. Now, when calling for this public hearing, the council looked at a couple of different maps with the thought of where might this tax increment resource be useful in the future. And at that time, we were given the direction to include all of the commercial areas that had been identified in the comprehensive plan as potential areas of change, I think was, I'm recalling the term that the comprehensive plan uses. So that is the map that was published and is up for consideration at this public hearing. Now, as I said, this isn't, the only urgency is to have the budget in the plan modified by August. Otherwise, this is a planning activity. So the purpose of the public hearing is to consider this, and along the route of getting to this public hearing, I know I received feedback at the Planning Commission, which considered this, and I'm sure you have all received feedback that there's some concern that this authorizes the city to acquire any parcel in this area. And so, and that may encourage the encroachment of commercial development onto residential areas, or it may not adequately protect existing healthy residential areas. So one of the things I wanted to offer for discussion is that this is the most flexible configuration of the project area. So there's a couple of options if the council chooses to narrow that. One is that this configuration of the project area stays as it is, which would authorize the city to expend tax increment funds within this area, but the council could narrow the area for which funds could be used for land acquisition. So this gets really confusing, but for example, if you kept this project area map in this way, you could use land for public improvements or other qualifying TIF expenditures. But if you wanted to negotiate the purchase of a property, which is the only way that property can be purchased for redevelopment at this time, and that property wasn't identified in this plan, then we'd need to come back and go through this public hearing process. It's about a 90-day process of modifying the plan. So I hope I haven't added more confusion. I'm just trying to be responsive to some of the concerns that I've heard. So the way it's presented now is the greatest degree of flexibility for the future, but it isn't in the context of some immediate action. Any redevelopment action would need to go through the normal planning process. The small area plan, the planning commission, the council approval. This does not supersede or circumvent any land use approval process that the city already has in place. So I want to be clear about that. It's just authorizing the TIF from Centennial Lakes TIF District to be used for activities that may be approved in the future.
All right. Before I ask council members if they have questions for you, let me make sure that I understand what exactly we're talking about here, or maybe have you walk us through it here, and you can either affirm or deny my understanding of this. So in sort of plain speak, what we have is a Centennial Lakes TIF district that at present has about $12 million in it. Is that correct?
Correct.
And it accrues about $3.5 million a year.
Correct.
And so by the time the district expires in 2014, at the end of calendar year 2014, how much money is anticipated to be in that district?
If nothing is spent between now and then, other than what's owed on various debt, $23 million.
All right. So with respect to that money that's sitting in the Centennial Lakes TIF district, at the end of the TIF district life, as I understand it, after expiration, you can only use the TIF money in that district for what was in a plan that was prepared prior to the expiration of the district.
That is correct, and not only what it's for, but where you've designated it.
So what this presents as an opportunity is you can collect it in one district, but you can basically use it for financing public infrastructure in a broader area than the area in which it was collected, potentially.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's kind of what we're going to decide tonight. And what we had suggested at least be looked at is these potential areas of change and creating a district for a redevelopment project area that would encompass 44th and France, 70th and Cahill, Valley View, Wooddale, and I think maybe 50th and France. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right.
And did you mention Grandview? Grandview? Did you mention Grandview?
Yeah, thank you. And Grandview District, which is extraordinarily important, where we're just doing some work over there now. So with that in mind, council members' questions. Member Sprague.
Thank you. So just so I understand this, we can expand the project area up through the expiration of the district, and after that, no further changes can be made. Is that correct?
Correct. I'm trying to state a plain speak here. The project area can be changed after that because that survives the TIF district, but the proceeds from the TIF district can't be spent any place that wasn't specified before 2014.
Okay, so the expendable area for the TIF funds can't be expanded after 2014.
That's a very good way to put it, yes.
Okay. And in your professional opinion, the most flexible plan, is that the one in front of us or the one that was originally recommended that included all the commercial areas?
The one in front of you is the most flexible tool.
Okay. In your professional experience, is this idea of expanding the project area unprecedented, or is this something that's done commonly?
Expanding the project area is a very common undertaking by cities, and in fact, many cities have the project area contiguous with their city boundaries. And if they're a growing community, when they annex new property, they will just automatically expand the project area. So the project area is like a planning area where you are looking at the general health of the city or the area.
Thanks.
Member Bennett.
Yes, Ms. Cook, I'm looking at the modification for the redevelopment area plan for the Southeast Edina redevelopment project area, and looking at page 3.3, which is titled Statement of and Finding of Public Purpose, it states in about the middle of the first paragraph that the property within the redevelopment project area is either underutilized or unused due to a variety of factors. And then it goes on to state inadequate public improvements, lack of private investment, not contributing to the tax base, et cetera. Looking at page 3.4, Statement of Objectives, objective number 6 is supporting the redevelopment of existing sites into more densely developed mixed-use sites that include retail, housing, and employment uses to encourage more walkable neighborhoods. Now, I'm understanding that, going back to the map you were showing earlier, the proposed expansion, I understand that alternatives have been presented as well, but the proposed expansion that goes up the eastern border of the city, that is roughly about 60% of the area of the city, correct? Roughly?
I'll take your word for it. It is a large portion of the city.
And that includes a substantial number of R1 neighborhoods? In other words, single-family home neighborhoods as well as commercial areas?
Yes. And if I can respond to your comment about 3.3 talking about property, the intent there is not that it's all the property in the area. It's that within this area there are such properties that may be underutilized.
But it doesn't say some property, it says the property within the area. So I guess my question is, what is the responsibility of this body to make a correlation between the actual on-the-ground conditions in the areas depicted on the map and these statements in this plan, which seem to be referring to conditions that don't exist on all the properties within the area?
I think the way I can respond to that is that what drives these documents is the state statute and the statutory findings in the statutory language. And so this document has been reviewed by Dorsey and Whitney, the city's TIF attorney, and they have been found they're comfortable with that. Now, if you proceed with adopting the resolution tonight, you are making findings that you are in that resolution confirming findings that were made when the project was initially established and when the district was initially established. So, because Centennial Lakes has redeveloped, and you couldn't make the same findings that necessitated redevelopment that were made in 1987 today. So the resolution and the action now is affirming those original findings.
So in other words, it expands those original findings into parts of the city that were not previously found to be blighted, have substandard housing and the like, which was among the original findings.
I'm sorry, I think I confused two issues. The findings relate to the modification to the TIF district, and so you have to, in that resolution, you have to affirm the original findings for the modification to the TIF district, which is just that Centennial Lakes area. The project area, which is what you're talking about, so forgive me, that is a general document that, yes, you are making general findings that there are areas within this project area that may benefit from the use of tax increment proceeds or other HRA activities.
And again, page 3.3 doesn't make a distinction. It doesn't say some properties. It actually says the property within the redevelopment project area. And finally, to reiterate a question that I posed earlier during our work session, it is possible to expand the project area, is it not, without having it be contiguous? For instance, the expansion of the project area could be to commercial properties, properties already zoned and guided commercial, but not to properties zoned single-family residential.
And I believe the attorney at that work session said that that was possible but not advisable.
And the reason why it wasn't advisable?
I think because the state auditor, it's a red flag for the state auditor. I think every project area that I'm aware of in the state of Minnesota, and I'm certainly not aware of all of them, is generally contiguous. They're generally viewed as a sort of a contiguous planning area, and which has very broad goals that would apply to it. But it is, according to the attorney, legally possible to make it non-contiguous.
And in fact, if I remember his answer correctly, and I think I do, it is that it would, the downside or the risk would be that the state auditor might scrutinize documents a little more closely. In other words, the T's would need to be crossed and I's dotted. I think those were his exact words. But I didn't hear him express any other concern or any other difficulty that he expected it would encounter with the state auditor.
I think that's true. I think our concern as your financial advisor is that it might trigger an audit, which is just time-consuming, quite time-consuming for staff. But that would be a judgment call.
Thank you.
Let me ask you two quick questions, Jessica. Does inclusion of R1 single-family property in a project area undermine in any way the underlying zoning laws that apply in the city?
No, Mayor, it does not.
All right. Does redefining a project area to include areas of potential change as designated in the comprehensive plan enhance the abilities of a city to engage in condemnation in an easier sort of way?
No, it does not.
All right. Member Brindle, any questions?
We spent a good amount of time in the work session prior to our meeting tonight talking about this, and that was an invaluable session, because there just are, as Joni alluded to, T's and I's. But it's clear to me that if we expand into one contiguous area with targeted projects in mind, and we identify those targeted projects within our contiguous area, then we don't raise any red flags. We have one contiguous project area with particular areas of interest. And if we go about it in that way, and I want to state it simply because it's kind of how I understand the legalese of this, would you agree that I understand this correctly, and that we would be setting ourselves up to be successful in those project areas that we are planning in the future?
I think that's an accurate assessment, yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
I have a couple questions for Planner Teague, or Community Development Director, get used to the new title. Director Teague, when the Waters was proposed, what was the approximate timeline for notice to the surrounding R1 neighborhood? My understanding is that that was guided as single-family residential in our comprehensive plan, that it was zoned R1, and what approximately was that space of time before it was rezoned high density? It's senior residential, but it's HDR, I believe, category.
The legal notice requirement is 10 days in advance of the public hearing. For that project, there were 4 public hearings held, 2 at the Planning Commission, 2 at the City Council. So the neighborhood was notified 10 days in advance of each of those. The developer, prior to the application, the application for the Planning Commission, held some neighborhood meetings, and those were, I would say, 45 days prior to when the Planning Commission held their public hearing.
My memory of timeline is a little bit different. I think those initial public meetings were held during December. There was also some concern about where signage had been placed. And I believe that the decision that was made by the Planning Commission and the council were both made in January or no later than the first week of February of the following year. So in other words, a span of a little less than 2 months. And that once that guide plan change was made, the comprehensive plan change, then it was no longer guided in the comprehensive plan, of course, as single-family residential. So once that action took place, which did so within that 2-month period, then it was every action that was taken subsequent to that was responding to the question of whether or not it was consistent with the guide plan. Am I correct?
That's correct. The first step, the preliminary rezoning, did include the amendment to the comprehensive plan, so you're correct.
All right, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to come forward and testify regarding this matter? Yes, sir. And again, I remind you that as you come forward, you've got 3 minutes, and the yellow light will go on when you have 30 seconds left, and we'll ask you to wrap up right on time.
Thank you. Mayor, members of the council, I'm coming on a parochial mission. I'm John Bohan. I live at 800 Coventry Place with my wife Janet. I've been there 16 years. We've benefited greatly from the TIF district, Centennial Lakes TIF district, in terms of Centennial Lakes Park and the Edinburgh Park. We've contributed happily in a monthly assessment in our fees that go to the parks. And frankly, I'm confused. There's 115 pages online, and after at least reviewing them briefly, I'm more confused as to what is going on. Let me tell you why I'm confused. The Edinburgh Park is under examination. There are some thoughts about perhaps changing its character. As part of the benefits we've had, we've used the park, Edinburgh Park in this case, for exercise 3 times a week. We have used the pool on occasion. There's money involved in why that examination is being made. And we're taking money out of a TIF district, which is quite limited, as I understand it, and putting it elsewhere in the city, with the motivation being the money has to be used by the end of 2014. So as a resident of the area benefiting from the TIF district, called Centennial Lakes, I'm thoroughly confused as to what is going on, and certainly the residents of that area have a right to be confused by the 115 pages and the discussion that's already taken place tonight. I'd like some clarification.
Thank you, Mr. Bohan.
Can I request that we pause for a minute and talk briefly about what TIF funds can be spent on? That might help some clarity to anyone else coming up at least. So who would like to take that on?
Jessica.
Okay, Jessica, thank you.
Councilmember Swenson, members of the council. When the Centennial Lakes TIF district was formed, at that time, the TIF could be used for park and recreational facilities, and a portion of the TIF was used to enhance the park. That law has changed, and so there is no longer the option to use any TIF from that district, even though it's the Centennial Lakes district, for park improvements at Edinburgh or elsewhere in the city. What it can be used for are public improvements, and I speak generally because every actual use, the facts would need to be looked at, but generally it can be used for street improvements, but not residential street reconstruction. Transit types of improvements, other public improvements, land acquisition, site improvements, environmental cleanup, public parking, and certain other costs related to redevelopment.
Can it be used to put a new roof on Edinburgh if we needed it as a maintenance item?
No.
Thank you.
Manager Neal.
Just a couple of responses for Mr. Bohan and others who are interested. Regarding the length of the documents, we wish there weren't 115 pages as well, but the regulation of tax increment financing at the state level is substantial, so we have to comply with all the various reports and boilerplate that are required of us. One thing I can tell you is that what we're not talking about really we're not talking about the two trust funds that were established at the outset of the Centennial Lakes project. So the trust funds for Centennial Lakes and Edinburgh are not impacted by this at all. And we are not in a use it or lose it sort of situation. So there's not a rush here by the City Council to expend dollars by a certain date. The action really is more of trying to plan for the future of the areas that we think might develop someday.
And some of these funds originally were moved from the 50th and France TIF district to the Centennial Lakes district in about 2006 maybe or 7. I remember voting on it, so it had to have at least been 2006.
That's correct, right.
Are there other?
I just want to say one more thing, Mayor, about the time element here. So as I requested from the professionals standing up here, we have to decide on the area in which we can expend the funds by the end of the district being certified, which is 2014. So that's the only time limit we're under. We have to, if we're going to expand the geographic area in which we can spend the collected TIF funds, we are under a time limit to do that by the end of 2014. So whatever decisions we make here tonight, if those were to hold through 2014, we couldn't go back and decide we want to expand the scope of the area in which we can expend the funds again. We're stuck after 2014. So whatever decision we make, we're going to have to live with after that date.
Other folks wish to come forward and testify?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Alan Ackerberg with Parasoli Restaurants. We have Salou and Matsumiya. I'd simply like to encourage the council to adopt the modification and expand the tax increment district.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Richard Curtin, property owner at 50th and France. I'd like to second that. I'm hopeful that you will quickly expand the district.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing no one and seeing no one. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Mike Fisher, 4512 Dunham Drive. I'm not here as a planning commissioner tonight. I'm here as a citizen who is a former city council president who used TIF substantially as a city councilor. As an urban designer, when I'm doing redevelopment work across the country, TIF has been the #1 tool we've used in redevelopment. And more recently, in the last 9 years, I've probably done a couple hundred TIF districts where we go out and validate TIF districts, oftentimes working with Ellers as the financial consultant to make sure that we're meeting state statutes. I'm here because I believe this is a very significant decision you're making tonight, and it's a very important one for the future of Edina. TIF is by far the best redevelopment tool we have. And this opportunity is a great opportunity for the city. We have a history of strong leadership in this area, and it's been discussed here tonight that the Centennial Lakes District had money fed to it from the Edinburgh District, the 50th and France District, and the Southdale District. So it's this idea of paying it forward in a sense. What I've learned as we've been out creating TIF districts across the state of Minnesota, this tool is getting more and more difficult to achieve. The standards are getting tighter, more difficult, and especially in Edina, we don't have a lot of blight by state statute definition. So when we're trying to go out and create TIF districts, it's difficult. This is a situation where we can take the monies that have been already created and use them in a broader project area. And I happen to know of a redevelopment opportunity in Grandview that's one of those that would be very useful to have this money kind of paid forward in a sense. We're hopeful that in Grandview we can create some sort of TIF district that can generate increment in the future, but having funds like this would be great opportunities for acquisition or other redevelopment activities. I do understand that some people are concerned that projects can be forced on neighborhoods or areas of the city because of TIF. And I just want to dispel that notion. It's an unfair characterization of TIF because in the past, unfortunately, there have been cities that have tied eminent domain with TIF. But they're two very different tools, and the fact is eminent domain is not a viable tool anymore. The laws have changed and it's gone away. So it's really a matter of thinking to the future, thinking about project opportunities, redevelopment opportunities, and saying if it's a good project opportunity or a good redevelopment opportunity, it's going to have to go through all of the processes that our city has, to weigh in on that. And if it's a bad one, it's going to fail. If it's a good one, it would be nice to know that we can reach over here and have the financing tools available to us to make it happen. And so I would highly encourage you to vote in favor of this.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Welcome.
Welcome, thank you. Hi, I'm Rachel Hubbard with the 50th and France Association, and this is Diana Fleetum with the 50th and France Board of Directors. She is the current president, and the board and the 50th and France Association is definitely in favor of the expansion of the TIF district to make public improvements. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hubbard.
Mr. Mayor, council members,
Ms. Fleetum.
I would just like to reiterate that the redistricting would be invaluable for us. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
My name is Janet Bohan. I live at 800 Coventry Place in Edina. And I just learned that the money could be used for street improvements. So I ask that you improve Edinburgh Way before the money's all spent. Thank you.
Thank you.
I thought that that's what this said. It can be used for street improvements.
Can you talk about what kind of streets can be improved? That would be helpful, I think.
Yes, if there is a major street improvement, street reconstruction that is contributing to redevelopment in general, such as the reconstruction of the France Avenue and 494 intersection, or the bridge improvement of France over Crosstown, Highway 62, that may be eligible. A routine street improvement, street reconstruction project that normally has been assessed to the property owners, that would not be potential use. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. Anyone else? All right. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded, we close the public hearing. Discussion? All those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. One question out of that, I think raised by Mr. Bohan, was concerned that from what he read, we may be taking money out of the Centennial Lakes TIF district. Ms. Cook, you may be able to assist on this, or our city manager. My understanding is that we would not be taking money out of the district. We would just be giving the city greater flexibility on where those monies gathered in the Centennial Lakes TIF district may be spent to improve public infrastructure in the future in the area that we designate as the project area.
Your Honor, I think that's true. I understand the point of this, though, is to increase the geographic area in which those dollars can be spent. So in that sense, money that's currently can only be spent, in that area roughly between France and York and Crosstown and 494, that area expands.
All right. And it wouldn't be excluded necessarily from future expenditures. It would just give us more flexibility in our proposed areas of change to to use some of these funds, these
That's
20-plus million to improve the condition of our community through redevelopment. Okay, thank you. Do we have is there a motion so we can have a discussion?
I will move the matter.
Are you moving the matter with the greatest flexibility on the plan?
I am moving the matter with alternative 1.
Can I offer an amendment to that?
We need a second.
Need a second first.
I'll second it, so
All right.
Josh can offer an amendment.
I'd like to amend alternative 1 to include 44th Street as it originally did in the first time this was considered, so that all of the potential areas of change identified in the comp plan are also included in this plan.
Do you have a second?
To his, I'll
proposed
agree
amendment?
to his change if you'd like me
You-
as second, but she hasn't said anything
Yeah,
yet.
you made the motion. You accept the...
Yes, I'll accept it.
All right, let's vote on the amendment first. All those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Now we're back to the main motion. Discussion.
Yes, please. Your Honor, I would like to have figure 4.4 from the comprehensive plan on the screen. If it's not able to be put up on the screen, I have a hard copy available that can be put under the overhead. Part of figure 4.4 illustrates the part of the comprehensive plan called potential areas of change. And before I read this, I want to make it clear, I have no problem with expanding the area to include commercial areas. We had, I think we have some need in the city. I have concern about what it's budgeted for already and how far 23 million will go. And we did have some comment from Ms. Cook that monies could be spent, for instance, for the interchange at, I think, France Avenue and 494. I know that in our HRA, we have an item budgeted that has been referred to in documents as a placeholder, but it's $16 million for the interchange at France Avenue and Highway 62. And we know that the expansion of Highway 62 cannot take place except with the rebuilding of those bridges, bridge by bridge by bridge, westward from the area where 62 and 35 were recently completed. I also know that there are hundreds of thousands of dollars in the HRA, again, for 2013 and forward. So I understand that the word placeholder has been applied to them. And then I also understand, Manager Neal, am I correct, that if any funds are lent, which is, I believe, the current negotiation with Simon, for Southdale, improvements at Southdale, that those would also come out of Centennial Lakes TIF funds? Am I correct in my understanding?
That is one of the options right now. It's probably the option that's most likely.
Okay, and that amount requested is 5.38 million?
That's the amount they requested, right?
Okay. So 23 million total, if things continue to grow as they are, and calls for them. In the meantime, we had a comprehensive plan process that described potential areas of change, and I hope I didn't give up my page that's got the text on them. The people who turned out for public meetings to discuss the future of the city were, nope, I can give this back, sorry. 10%, here it is, page 430 in the version that was given to council. And again, potential areas of change. There was a lot of concern about redevelopment of the city during the comprehensive plan, and there was some initial identification of what areas were likely to be affected. That's what figure 4.4 illustrates. And the sentence in the comprehensive plan states, because the city has fully developed, additional housing, for instance, would have to occur through redevelopment. The areas listed here, which could accommodate more housing, and shown in figure 4.4, potential areas of change, represent less than 10% of the total acreage of the city. There's also text later in the comprehensive plan that talks about the process that's going to be gone through to arrive at small area plans for those areas. And while one has been underway for the Grandview area for the last couple of years, it is in fact not yet completed. So we don't know yet how well outcome is going to relate to what has been so far a good process. I think we're all very hopeful, but again, that single plan has not yet been completed. So my concerns with expanding a map to include 60% of the city are, first of all, we didn't discuss this with people during a comprehensive plan process through which the city went very deliberately, involved as many people as were willing to be involved, and the areas, again, identified as areas of potential change are the ones circled, those commercial areas, not the R1. Also responding to testimony from the public, one person stated that TIF is the #1 tool in redevelopment across the country. I appreciate that, and again can appreciate its utility in commercial areas, but why would we expand an area where those funds could be used to include single-family home neighborhoods that during our comprehensive plan process we told people were not areas of potential change? And if we have no intention of using those funds to prompt redevelopment or facilitate redevelopment in those areas, why would we include it? Finally, there was a statement made that eminent domain is not on the table, the laws have changed, it's gone away. And while, yes, state law did change in 2006 in response to a U.S. Supreme Court case that held that indeed it was legal to use eminent domain for a government entity to compel the sale of land purchased by a public entity to be given to a developer for private redevelopment. The U.S. Supreme Court in the Kelo case upheld that, and in reaction, a number of states, including the state of Minnesota, changed their laws. As we again discussed at our work session earlier tonight, laws change, legislatures change, and that could change in the future. So given those assurances made during the comprehensive plan, given what the expansion documents state about need for redevelopment, increased density and the like, which I think are appropriate discussions to have about our commercial area, I just can't support the expansion of the area to include roughly 60% of the city, including a lot of very, very fine residential neighborhoods.
Comments, Member Sprague.
Thank you, Mayor. The reason why I support the expansion is because of the reasons that were given by our financial consultant, which would allow us to have the greatest flexibility in the future. We can't predict how land use is going to change. Land use is guided by our zoning laws, which includes a pretty significant public process already. Whether they're identified as potential areas of change or not, they all have to go through that process. So that protection will always be there. The eminent domain law, although it's been circumscribed, yes, it could be expanded, but they will still have some protections there, which will allow us to do something if it's legal. And the third thing is that the small area plans offer another level of protection through a public process. I'm confused as to why we would go through the pain of identifying potential areas of change and then not allow resources to fund those potential changes in the future. Again, assuming a thorough public process. We're all up here, we're elected officials, and we listen to the residents. We take a lot of input in a lot of different ways, and I feel very comfortable that no one's going to sell out our R1 residential neighborhoods to developers simply because some money is available. So that clearly would be a dereliction of duty under all of the various principles stated in the comprehensive plan. So again, my reason for bringing this forward is to give us the greatest flexibility, since we can't predict how the land use map will change in the future. Certain corners might develop, and I want to have resources available if we decide as a city, if we decide as a council leadership that that's the direction we want to go in. And I don't see excluding any area. I think that's unfair. I think that's unfair to the other areas that might not have even discussed this, for one thing, and for another reason, I just think it's not necessary. I think it's not necessary. We have the protections in place. Why not use a mechanism that has been given to us? And we have uses identified for this money. We don't know how that's going to play out. We don't know who's going to come in to fund the bridge, for instance, on France. Partners might come forward as a plan is more closely developed. Same for our corridor project on France. And that could be, and same for Grandview. We don't know how that's going to play out. So there may be additional funds. If there are, I'd like to have those funds available as opposed to going back to the tax base or bonding to try to fund something in that manner.
Thank you. Member Swenson.
I support expanding this district for a number of reasons. But I really think the most important reason is that what we've done as a city is always look towards the future. That's why we have Edinburgh and Centennial Lakes. It's important to stay in front of things as a city. And I don't feel like expanding it in any way endangers any of our residential areas. I don't want to exclude any small node potential change neighborhood. I happen to live by one, Wooddale and Valley View. Will any of this money ever go there? Probably not. I think it'll all end up getting spent by a few intersections and a few bridges and things that won't be quite as much fun, but will be still important to our city. But to limit us to not allowing these areas in our neighborhood like Cahill and 50th and Grandview and 44th and France, including the Southdale area, I think would be very poor planning on our part. So I support this.
Thank you. Member Brindle.
I also support this. I go back to the work session we had previously. The advice we got, from our professionals, I feel was loud and clear that expanding to a contiguous area is important for both flexibility as well as to avoid raising red flags at the state auditor's office and possibly triggering an audit about why we are salt and peppering our, that's my word, why we're doing it here and not here, basically. I think that we have put some tools in place, such as the small area guide plan process, and we will continue to devise new tools to put into place to protect R1 neighborhoods. I don't think they're at risk at all. I think we respect them. I think that they will continue to be respected. They are the lifeblood of our city, and the commercial parts of our city are here because of the R1 neighborhoods. I don't think any of us takes that for granted at all. I think that it is the right thing to do to give us the flexibility, to give us as today's leaders and tomorrow's leaders the flexibility to have options, to expand, to redevelop, and to improve our city. And I think that's what this is putting in place. I don't think it's putting anything at risk. One area of the city that Member Swenson didn't mention, and I'm going to mention because it's in my part of the city, is 70th and Cahill. So basically, to totally explain what we're doing here, alternative one, which is in what we're talking about, is that the redevelopment project area includes the green outlined area that was on the graphic earlier, expands the current RPA redevelopment project area to include Grandview, 70th and Cahill, Valley View and Wooddale, 50th and France, and 44th and France.
I'd just like to reiterate that if that were all we were doing, is just including the areas of potential change that were identified in the comprehensive plan, which do include those neighborhood business nodes at Cahill and 70th, Valley View and Wooddale, 44th and France, as well as 50th and France and the Grandview area, in addition to what was previously in the project area. If that's what we were doing, I would be able to support it. But because it's expanded so far beyond the boundaries that were identified as areas of potential change, that's why I have to oppose it.
For me, this is an extraordinary opportunity. When we learned that money that had been aggregated in the Centennial Lakes TIF district, that had drifted in from other TIF districts and been created in the Centennial Lakes TIF district, could actually be used in a broader area of our town for economic redevelopment purposes, I got almost giddy. I don't know what all the projects are going to be, but opportunities are abound. I mean, there's some known, some unknown. But this is going to put us in a position where we can assist in these potential areas of change and help improve our town over time and make sure that we stay ahead of the curve and stay a leading community in the metro area and, in fact, in the state and in the country. So I think it's a golden opportunity for us to advance our community using what's going to amount to, over time, $23+ million. So I'm in favor of it as well. So the main motion before us now that encompasses the amendment is that we adopt the let's see here. It's embodied in Resolution 2012-31, City Council resolution, and it also is embodied in a HRA document. But it includes the most flexible area possible that we have for all of those areas that were initially proposed. So does anyone have require any further explanation as to the geographic territory involved with the scope of the matter? All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay.
Nay.
Carried. Now, we're going to move on to the community comment portion of the agenda. And again, remind folks coming forward that we don't want you to visit about things that are on the agenda this evening, or that we know might be on the agenda in the near future or have been on the agenda in the immediate past. But if you have a concern or want to raise an issue with council or with staff, please feel free to come forward. You'll have 3 minutes, and we'll be happy to entertain your concern or your comment. All right. Seeing no one coming forward, we're going to move on to the next portion of the agenda, which is reports and recommendations. The first item we have in front of us, and these are, folks, at least this first item is not an action item, but we're going to have a discussion led by Dan McElroy from the Minnesota Restaurant Association regarding a request involving the Edina Code Section 900. And Mr. McElroy, if you come forward, we'll listen to your presentation, and then I think 5 minutes, I think, could be sufficient to hear what you have in mind on behalf of your members in Edina, and then I think the council is going to have to decide what it wants to do with it relative to directing staff to do something or not do anything.
Mayor, if I could, I'd like two licensees to join me and make very brief comments. I think David Burley is here with the Edina Grill and Donna Vaz with Parasoli. Now, we had provided some model language to staff. Was that distributed to council?
Yes, it was.
All right, thank you.
Some time ago. I mean, probably you submitted that maybe a month ago, right?
A couple of months
ago.
I brought some other copies.
No, that's good. Thank you, Mr. McElroy, for bringing them.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. We were here last a few months ago in which we had a discussion where you asked us to have a discussion with staff about the possibility of changing your code to make more clear the language around pricing and to permit some limited use of discounts in what's commonly referred to as happy hour. That has gotten some publicity with the local Patch newspaper and some television publicity. I hope that's resulted in your hearing from constituents as to how the community feels about it. I know we've heard from guests in restaurants that they would look forward to having some of those opportunities. We proposed a very simple language change. It would continue to prohibit 2-for-1 or multiple pricing, coupons, barters, contests, kind of aggressive pricing of alcohol, and we believe is phrased in such a way that it's clear, understandable, and enforceable. With that, I'd ask David Burley first to comment briefly, and then Donna Foss. Then we'd be happy to take.
Before Mr. Burley comes up, Mr. McElroy, could you tell us what the effect of the proposed change would be with respect to our ordinance?
Essentially, Mayor, and you might want to ask your staff their view, there is confusion today because most restaurants do not have a printed menu for alcohol. The alcohol is priced on the point-of-sale system. There are so many combinations. It would, with this language, be possible for a restaurant to run special prices at particular times of the day. $2 off draft beer from 3 to 5 Monday through Thursday, for example, which is challenging currently because of the language that prohibits discounting below the, quote, regular menu pricing. The current language has also been somewhat confusing to enforce. But it does not, my members are very proud of the fact that they are food-oriented. They run restaurants, not bars. They're not in the nightclub business. That wouldn't change. All of the other provisions in your ordinance, all the provisions of state law, all the requirements of our dram shop insurance carriers stay in place. Some modest time of day-based pricing would be possible.
All right, thank you. Let's bring Mr. Burley up and then Donna up to tell us what they think the impact of this would be for their businesses.
Yeah, Mayor Hovland, council members.
And your name, full name and address, please, Mr. Burley.
David Burley. I live at 1011 36th Street in Minneapolis. There's a variety of reasons why I think this is a good idea to look at this now, but overwhelmingly the most important thing to me is that our guests are actually asking us for this. This has been going on for years. I've lost track of how many guests have come into our store between 3, 4, 5 o'clock at night and walk into the restaurant, sit down at the bar, and then what do you have on happy hour? And we're like, well, we don't have one, and then we have to explain that. So from our perspective, it's what our guests are looking for, that's the most important thing to us.
Mr. Burley, stand by here, or go ahead and sit down. I'll have Donna come up, and then
Hello, I'm Donna Foz. I live 16270 South Hillcrest in Eden Prairie, but I feel like I live in Edina because I've worked here in restaurants for 30 years. I represent Parasoli, and most of you know we have 4 full-service restaurants in Edina, 3 of them with full liquor license, 1 with a beer and wine license. Really, I think that giving us more latitude in modest adjustments is just good for business. I also think, like David, guests really want that. They come to expect it. And I think they also resent the fact that in Edina, you can't get what is standard practice in most every other community. And I can assure you we are food-driven. We will continue to be food-driven. And I remember standing around here, well, in the old building, about 20 years ago, past 20 years ago, asking your predecessors to please consider a revision in the then ordinance, which required restaurant operators to deliver a food menu item before a glass of wine or a bottle of beer was delivered. It seems absurd, but that was what it was. But I can assure you, now like then, we will comply. We will be good citizens of the community. We love Edina.
All right, thank you.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. Coming up coming up to agenda item after next is a issue involving the potential change in our penalty matrix for violating the 60-40 rule, so-called 60-40 rule, where in Edina, where we wanted to be primarily a restaurant community with liquor used, not as a, we don't want to be a bar town, I guess is a simple way to put it. For the first time in my career on the city council, we're seeing at least one of our restaurateurs and maybe more having a little bit of difficulty with this ratio. And so while that may be something this council chooses to look at, we haven't made any determination on that. I'm wondering what effect you think that this particular proposed change would have on that 60-40 rule relative to your own business.
Well, to Parasoli's restaurants, I can assure you that we're well above that, the food to liquor ratio. In fact, one of the restaurants, if we get 4% beer and wine sales, it's a good day. So it doesn't have any impact on our businesses. We're food driven. We're food, all day food. But I think it should be known that by offering spirits and beer and wine, that is an amenity to people going out. And that's what they look for. That's what they want. I can't speak of the relationship for the 60/40 because our restaurants haven't come close to having that as a threshold that we worry about.
As a 30-year restaurateur, do you think that implementation of this change would help or hurt people trying to meet the requirements of the 60/40 rule?
I think it should be up to the individual restaurant operator whether they even offer it. And I would imagine that if they're fairly close to that, it might be taken into consideration that they don't offer it. But I think for those restaurants that certainly meet that requirement, it is a good way to introduce people to your business, and it's a good way for people to give trial. So that's
Thank you, Donna. Ms. Briley, I want to ask you the same questions because these are important issues for us, you know. And you're important commercial residents of our town, so we want to make sure we stay on top of this.
Yeah, I'm not sure that it would, I'd reiterate what Donna said. I don't know that it would directly impact the 60/40 split. I mean, we would be, like in my case, for instance, we would be discounting a very small amount of time, very select items as we saw fit. I mean, and there's the other part of this that hasn't gotten a lot of attention is there's kind of been a trend in our business to discount, like on a slower evening, to discount wine. You've probably seen half-price bottle of wine Tuesday, Monday, or whatever, and like that's another. We're unable to do that at the Edina Grill, and that's something I'd be all over that. It's just good business, and that's something that our guests are asking for specifically. And I would also, additionally, I would offer that there are other laws on your books that prevent, that kind of bar thing happening. I mean, we have that 15% rule. You can't just build a bar. You have to have a restaurant, and then you've got the 60/40 split that you guys have to. Sorry, not you guys, but the city has to enforce.
And so both of you are experienced restaurateurs and have facilities in other communities in the metro area, and I'm wondering if you could comment about how you think that this has potentially impacted you economically relative to your situations in other communities.
Yeah, I don't know how much we can actually attribute to it economically, but 2 of the restaurants in Edina have sister stores in other communities. Pittsburgh Blue has one in Maple Grove. The Good Earth has one in Roseville. Those properties do have some kind of discounted offering. And I will tell you that guests that frequent both, because there is crossover in our guests, they get confused. Well, what in the heck? Why can't you do this? So we do have to explain that. And we are in the hospitality industry, and that is something that we do explain. But it is a point of contention for some people when they come in expecting it.
Thanks, Ms. Bob.
Yeah, agreed.
Really?
Yeah, we have coincidentally a restaurant in Maple Grove and then 2 in Minneapolis that are similarly concepted as the Edina Grill. And we have vibrant business between 3 and 5 p.m. that we don't have at the Edina Grill. I'd like that.
And what kind of food liquor ratios are you seeing in those establishments?
Well above the 60/40 split.
Mr. McElroy, I've got a question for you that's more industry-based.
It's more industry-based than for a trade association executive. We are seeing other cities struggle to some extent with this, and some of it has to do with the popularity of fairly expensive beer and wine. When 60/40 became popular, the $9 craft beer or the $17 glass of wine was just not heard of. And some of those relationships and the fact that people still will come in and buy a $17 glass of wine and a $7 appetizer cause some stress to that. But they are separate issues. I don't know that there will be a huge impact based on allowing some modest discounting of alcohol.
All right. So based on the data that you look at for your members in Edina, you don't see that this will affect their ability to meet the 60/40 rule. Is that what I hear you saying?
I don't think it's a huge impact, although there may be members, other licensees who'd like to comment on that. There's several other licensees here.
All right. Good. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes. No response.
Are we the only community that doesn't allow it?
In Minnesota, you are. There are 2 communities that limit discounting to prior to 9 o'clock in the evening. They've limited late night happy hour, and those are Circle Pines and Lexington. We're not aware of any other restrictions in Minnesota along these lines.
And I remember talking to a manager recently at the West End at McCormick and Schmidt, whose comment was that he really didn't need happy hour for liquor because he has happy hour for food, and he's so pleased with what that brings in, he can't see why he would need to discount liquor that gives him a better margin. Is that true?
That's been very successful for them. They have, I think it's $2.75 cheeseburgers at 3 o'clock. That hasn't worked for everyone, but there obviously would be no requirement that they need to discount alcohol unless they wish to. But yes, I'd heard that from Mike also. And he's the only licensee from whom I heard that.
Good, thank you, Mr. McElroy. Any other questions for Mr. McElroy or Mr. Burley or Ms. Bott? All right, thanks. Well, an interesting issue. Council, we've had this issue touching us tangentially, I guess, in the past, and now Mr. McElroy has come back with a proposal that we slightly change our existing ordinance to allow the pricing suggested. Thoughts from council on this in terms of what, if anything, we should be requesting staff to do for investigation?
I was just going to ask that staff review it, would be my recommendation.
I concur. Yeah.
Nodding
Yeah.
favorably. I feel the same. Member Brindle?
Yes, I do too. I think it looks like there are opportunities that we ought to look at for our restaurateurs. While at its very base, people have heard me say this before, I don't want to make it easy for anyone to drink too much in Edina. It's a protection for our neighborhoods, and it's protection for area businesses around the organization that serves alcohol. But at the same time, we've got organizations with track records, and they're respectable. So there are reasons to listen to this and take their advice and take their requests seriously.
Member Bennett.
I'm comfortable having staff review it. A couple of articles I've run across recently include Edina Magazine's best happy hours in Edina. So I guess it depends on what you define as a happy hour, but there certainly is a scoring and ranking. And they did talk about the discounts on food. I am also intrigued by the reference to a menu because I have dined in the restaurants in the area, and there, in fact, are prices on a menu. So I don't understand the difficulty. Again, I'm comfortable with the idea that it would be studied. And then finally, I know that we have another study underway on how we are going to build and fund the expansion of parking at 50th and France. And I know that I don't know what's happening between the hours of 3 and 5 in the afternoon, but I know that there has been enough concern about adequacy of parking at other times of day that it's determined that we need about 200 extra spaces, and that's just to meet current need in that area. So those are factors that are, I think, also need to be looked at and weighed, but again, I'm comfortable having staff look at this further.
The whole use of the phraseology happy hour is a real bad connotation, I think, for what you're attempting to accomplish here. And you all know we take pride in having a family atmosphere and wanting folks to come to facilities in our town, restaurants in our community to enjoy themselves. And as I mentioned earlier, we don't want to be a bar town. But the people that are talking to me about so-called happy hour pricing are people that are retired. I'm not having anybody 25 or 35 years old coming to me and saying, "Hey, what about happy hour?" It's all the seniors who at 3 in the afternoon want to go somewhere and have a little meal and a discount drink. So I actually stunned one of the property owners at 50th and France when I told him that.
Your Honor, just to clarify, you want staff. The council wants staff to take a look at the proposal and then to give you some feedback on how it would change our enforcement procedures and what other impacts it might have. Do I have that right?
I think that's a fair. Okay.
Well, and I think we also have people in the community we need to hear from. I think we need to hear from our police chief about what our current patterns of enforcement are. I think we need to hear, if we have a chemical health coordinator for the city, I would certainly hope that she would be part of a discussion. I think that any further look at this should include those people as well.
All right. Did you want this in the form of a motion, Manager
please.
Neal?
Yeah.
All right. Member Swenson?
I move the staff review this.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. And Mr. McElroy, we may need to rely on some data from you for another issue that will be coming in front of us. We'll see. I don't know if, but I know that you'll be a ready resource for us for the association if we need it. Thank you. Mr. Burley, Ms. Favre, thank you. Mr. Ackerberg, everyone else that was here. I noticed someone else raised their hand. I'm sorry I didn't get to you, but you probably wisely decided you didn't want to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory on this one, so put your hand down. All right. What do we have next? All right. Thank you. VIP parking. Ms. Hubbard's coming back.
Dynamic duo is back.
Back.
Thanks
All right.
again, Mayor Hovland and members of the council. The Edina Art Fair is celebrating its 46th year as the
Would you
largest.
reintroduce yourself,
Oh,
please,
I'm
for this
sorry.
matter?
Yep.
Rachel and
I'm
Diana.
Rachel Hubbard with the 50th in France Association.
And I'm Diana Fleetum, President of the 50th in France Association Board of Directors.
Thank you. Again, the Edina Art Fair is celebrating its 46th year as the largest Edina community event. The 50th in France Association uses the revenue from the art fair to provide free community events, marketing and advertising for 50th in France, website and social media, planters, banners, lighting, and other projects of interest. The 50th in France Association and the Board of Directors request permission to utilize the Edina 50 parking lot as VIP parking for vendors instead of utilizing that same parking lot for food vendors, beer garden, and entertainment court. For over 16 years, the association has used this lot for revenue and wishes to continue the use of the parking lot as a revenue generator during the art fair, June 1st through the 3rd. This parking lot has always been closed and not used for parking during the event. This would help support revenue and support parking shortage we will face this year for vendor parking. In the past, we have used area churches in which will be cut due to decreased spaces now available to them.
Anything further? Leadham?
I just wanted to add that what we have found in the past when we've used it for the food vendors is that it was not a successful place for the food. This past year, when we had the best weather ever, we had the food vendors reported the lowest sales ever. So we've decided that that is not a good position for that. So we think the artists and the food vendors will love to have VIP parking. They're always looking for that.
All right. Yeah, that was one of the first questions I had when I read your request here. I thought, what will happen? Where are you going to put the food court? Or aren't you even going to have one? It seems to me like it's an essential part of it.
Yes, it is. We still plan on having a food court by Ewing and 50th, East 50th Street, by the old Pearson's 50th Cafe and Pig and Fiddle. And then the second food court location will be by the U.S. Bank parking lot. So it'll be more visible for the food vendors. We've had some difficulty these last few years getting food vendors because of what Diana explained, that the visibility in that area has not been very good.
Other questions from council on this proposal? You would use the existing traffic configurations. I mean, you wouldn't have them going in against the one-way. They would use the same setup that exists now.
Correct.
All right, and then you would use those. How many spots are behind the Edina 50?
Well, it may depend on, food vendors have bigger trailers, so in that sense, that would help with the congestion that we have seen in the area. So it would be in a confined area. I guess roughly, I'm not really sure, maybe 50 to 75. I'm just totally guessing. I'm not exactly sure. That might be lofty. Yeah. 30 to 40.
So the notion is you think you can make more money charging for VIP parking than you can selling food there, and you'll sell food somewhere else.
Correct. Correct.
Questions?
I do.
Yeah, Member Bendel.
Hi, Rachel. Hi. Okay, so if, in fact, this lot isn't used for VIP parking, what would happen? I mean, what would you use it for? Just regular parking? Or would you not open it for parking?
It probably would be used for regular parking. I guess at this point, you know, if this did not pass, I guess we would maybe go back to the board and see if there's any other thing that we could think to use it for, but probably just open for parking.
And this would be marketed to the, to all vendors at the art fair so that they could purchase a VIP permit and park in that lot?
Correct.
All right. Okay, so how much are you going to sell the ticket for to park in that lot?
You're asking good questions. We have not discussed that as a board. We just, I guess, approved the idea of bringing it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, parking is hard to come by. I know that because I park in a friend's driveway, which I'm very thankful that I can. So, all right. Well, frankly, I don't know. I don't see any reason not to approve it.
Well, you must have a good parking spot. You're there about 16 hours a day.
I am. I park. Yep, I park.
I figured maybe you slept in that little shack by the corner of Lund's there.
No, as a matter of fact, well, if I did, I could hold it down when the wind comes by, but, which did happen one year. It just went over and over. But I would vote in favor of this. Being part of the art fair, I do understand how challenging this is and how much we value the vendors and their art and their commitment to making the art fair a positive experience, so that if we can turn around and make it easier for them to park, to bring inventory back and forth from their trailers, I don't see any reason not to do it. So I would support this.
Member Bennett.
I think the art fair is a great thing, and I understand the issues. It sounds like you're making a good plan with respect to the food. When I read through this again tonight, after having read through it before, words jumped out at me that had jumped out at me before, and they are the city-owned surface parking lot. And Manager Neal and Attorney Knutson, I have some questions, because to me it seems like this would sort of be the equivalent of, you take a public street, for instance, in Minneapolis, which has parking meters. We don't have parking meters in Edina. And then instead of the city having parking meters, the businesses that are next to the street have their parking meters, so that the revenue from those parking meters goes to the businesses, not to the city. Because now I do understand that the businesses in this area participate in assessments that support these facilities. So can somebody talk me through what the principles are here?
The first time I read this, I had the same thoughts, but I worked my way through them. First, I think we can handle it for a couple of reasons. First, we could enter into a very brief agreement with them, so we basically lease it to them, for example, for, what is it, 2 days? 3 days, excuse me, 3 days, for a nominal amount of money. We can do that. Or there's provision in Chapter 471 of allowing us to provide money to artistic organizations, which is an undefined term, and I think that would also apply here. So I think you can legally do it, is my conclusion.
Because it is in the nature of something of a contribution, is it not?
Yes, to an artistic, loosely, an artistic organization, yes.
Who bears liability? Now, understanding that during normal parking periods in the ramp, in the lots, the liability, if there were to be any, would be public, a city liability. Yes. During this anticipated use, when it would be not open for that kind of access and use, who would be responsible should anything happen?
We could allocate that in the very brief lease to them. Now, they'd have to get insurance. And I don't know, I don't,
Did they need that insurance when they had it?
Yeah,
I don't know. I was not involved.
I was just going to say, we do provide liability insurance when we apply for the permit for the Edina Art Fair, and we do.
So that would cover it. That would cover it. So that shouldn't be an issue.
Well, whatever direction is gone, I think I would probably favor having it be memorialized in something that then could be replicated going forward or looked back on as a guide or example of what was done. I think that provides transparency, clarity, and again, a guide for future
I think that's
decisions.
a great idea because that way everyone knows what's expected of them and what, and if there's anything happens, and who cleans up the place afterwards, after those 3 days. You know, I think a very brief agreement would be a good idea.
Just so you know, we do have that in place we have, the Edina Public Works Department does clean up the parking lot because the same issue would arise with the food vendors being there.
Just make sure that the fee covers at least your legal services for crafting the agreement, okay?
Like I said, it'll be a very nominal amount.
We'll get them cheese curds.
All right. Other questions? All right. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. There's some action requested here. And is there a motion?
I'd move the matter subject to the execution of a lease pursuant to the terms that we just discussed.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Discussion? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those say nay. Carried. Next matter, Manager Neal. I'll get it straight here.
Thank you, Your Honor. This item comes to you, I previewed it for you last week. We do not have currently a penalty in our penalty ordinance for violations of compliance with our liquor ordinance, section 900 of our city code. So what we have prepared for you for consideration tonight is an ordinance that incorporates the existing penalty matrix that was historically approved by the council by resolution and incorporated that into an ordinance form, and it includes proposed penalties for the failure to meet the 60/40 rule that you just discussed a few minutes ago. I can go through those proposals if you like, if that's what. Okay. Since we do not currently have proposed penalties for that, we had to make a proposal for you. In the first violation, that we're proposing a penalty of a $500 fine, a 6-month probationary license, a development of a plan to achieve compliance within 1 year with the monitoring visit at 6 months, where the council can grant an additional 6-month probationary license to the applicant if staff can certify positive progress towards the full compliance goal. The second violation is essentially the same thing except for a $1,000 fine, and the third violation would be revocation, and the license holder is barred from holding future liquor licenses for a period of not more than 24 months. Those are the proposals. We offer them to you as perhaps a starting point for a discussion. There wasn't anything really in this area that we could draw from, so this is our best proposal to you at the moment.
Member Swenson.
Do I assume that staff does the monitoring and then at 6 months, if there's movement, that it just comes before us on a consent agenda to forward it forward for another 6 months?
I can imagine that we would receive the same kind of financial data that we receive for the renewal at the 6-month period, and we'd certify to you whether there was sufficient progress towards the compliance goal. And if there was, perhaps that's on a consent agenda item at that time.
But I expect staff to do the monitoring. I don't expect the restaurant to necessarily have to come in at 6 months and then again at 6 months. Is that correct?
I would say if they are in compliance or in that, on the road to compliance, they would, I'm sure they would probably still show up because this license is very important to them
Oh,
economically.
no, I understand that.
If they're not in compliance or not making progress towards compliance, I would think that they would be at the podium explaining to you why they want an additional 6-month probationary license.
Okay. And all you're asking at 6 months is that there's some movement forward, correct?
Right.
Thank you.
I think there's some nice clarity and simplicity in the language that you crafted here, and I think it works quite well, at least for me personally. I don't want to micromanage this situation. I think relying on staff to see if there's positive progress is something that I'm comfortable doing. It strikes me that if we're issuing a 6-month probationary license, there ought to be cost for that license that's probably half of what they'd otherwise pay for an annual license. At least that's something I think you ought to be giving consideration to.
May I speak to that issue, please? Mayor and council, we would give them a license, but 6 months they would be on probation. And so they would lose, by missing the 60/40, they would lose the incentive that's currently in our code for compliance with everything.
Okay.
And so they would be obtaining a 12-month license with a 6-month probationary period.
All right, that's good. So the mechanics of it would be they would
They would purchase their annual license, and they are on
on.
probation for 6 months,
All right.
plus the fine.
And then that would be monitored by you and the city manager in terms of progress or some other selected staff?
Correct.
All right.
And if they don't achieve compliance in 6 months, then what happens?
Well, they have to have
Nothing, they
movement
just-
towards compliance
They
in
have to
6
show
months.
us movement towards compliance.
But if they don't show any progress, then their license expires?
Then we will be back with them and quite possibly escalate to the second violation.
Oh, so if they don't achieve positive progress in 6 months, then that's considered a second violation?
Yeah, I think we may have to consider that, as the city attorney advises me that we don't have the authority to issue a 6-month license. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct, under state law, 340A. It's a 1-year license, so they'll pay the 1-year license fee.
Right.
But then for the first 6 months, they'll be on probation, and then depending on what happens,
All
they
right.
leave probation or not.
If they violate their 6-month probation, then what happens?
Then they're into the second violation, and they pay $1,000. If you don't see adequate progress,
Yes.
they pay another fine.
That's how I think we
And
could
I guess
use that
it's subject
enforcement.
to them having the right of appeal to the council and have a hearing on it. And then they go into that second portion of the probationary period, and then they're subject to revocation or non-renewal, I guess, if it amounts to.
And I should also point out, these are the presumptive penalties, and I'll just make something up, okay? Let us just say they were 50-50 when they came in and you found the first violation. After 6 months, they were only 25% food and there were 75% liquor. They're going in the absolute wrong direction. You would not have to wait. You could revoke. These are presumptive.
Okay, let's flip the scenario the other way, that if they initially came in at 50-50 and at 6 months, they'd gone to 54-46.
Or they're at 50/50 again?
No, I'm
That's it.
trying to do something different. I want to make another point. So then they continue down for another 6 months, and there's progress after that. Is there a fine then the second year, even though maybe they're at 58-42 and they haven't quite gotten there yet? So at year 2,
If
they're
have-
still on probation, and is there now a fine for $1,000?
Yes, but you don't have to impose that fine.
Okay.
This is presumptive, and you can look at the facts and say, under these facts, no fine. Or you're
No.
off probation, you're good to go.
No, when Manager Neal and I met with one of the CPAs that's doing work for some of the restaurateurs, my impression was that it's going to take a while to turn the ship. And
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if it might be worth discussing having a one-year probationary license.
Yeah.
And so that you give them actually time to make some really good progress, and then we look at it after 1 year to see how close they are to 60-40, or maybe in the interim, we've reassessed the ratio and have decided that under the circumstances, the way the world works now, we maybe need to adjust the ratio.
Well, how often do we get these figures from the restaurants?
Once each year.
It is annually, okay. Well, maybe we ask for them every 6 months during that probationary period. If it's a one-year probationary license, then we ask for those figures at the 6-month point as well as the 1 year point.
Well, my sense would be that if we went for a one-year probationary period, in that 12-month period, you'd have to be showing progress. I mean, you'd want to be working with the city to show that you're going to make it, or you're going to come real close. But I worry that 6 months isn't quite enough time to get back to the ratio. You know, maybe it's not necessary that you get back to the ratio and you're just showing progress towards getting to the ratio at the end of 12 months, but I still personally like the idea of a 12-month probationary period.
Well, I'm not saying it wouldn't be a 12-month probationary period, but I think that's too long before
You want to check in the interim.
Yeah,
exactly.
I don't disagree with you on that either.
Yeah,
I think
because I think that both, they want to show us progress, and we want to be able to see that progress, and frankly say, job well done, keep at it, and we want your doors to stay open, and we want you to continue your business, just as you are.
So you're saying a 6-month report and a 12-month probationary period?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, everybody, I think up here is keeping in mind the notion that these restaurateurs of ours have made investments worth millions of dollars in these facilities, and we don't want them to fail.
No, we don't.
So let's give them every chance in the world to succeed, recognizing the current conditions in the marketplace. So I think that's one thing we might want to look at downstream too. But Member Bennett, did you have a comment?
I have some questions regarding some of the other items. With respect to this one, so where it says a 6-month probationary license, since we've learned that the license itself has to be issued for the period of a year, that should be a probationary period should be
12 months.
What if you
so
just
to
have a
change the 6 to
12-month
12?
probationary license, development a plan to achieve compliance and a monitoring visit
Visit
at
at 6 months,
6
that
months,
works.
period.
Exactly what it says.
And then the further granting an additional 6-month probationary period, because it can't say license because it's a 1-year license. Actually, we'd strike. After 6 months, you'd just strike.
Yep.
6 months period.
I suppose the question
Yeah.
is, what do we do after a year if they're not there and we haven't changed the ratio? Then do they go into a second period of probation, or is it a death sentence and a non-renewal? And that's pretty dangerous territory.
That depends on the numbers.
You know, I like the way you've written it. We've never had to deal with this before. I think working towards this at 6 months increments, going through past 1 year is probably appropriate. Businesses change, the economy changes, and I would at least like to do it the way that it has a first violation and a second violation. I would be more comfortable with that. On that second violation, we have to change it to a 12-month probationary license again, with a 6-month period, and then a period after that 6 month, and get rid of the rest of it.
If we were to assume, I mean, we're assuming, you know, we have good operators. Let's assume we have a bad operator, and it's flagrantly violating the rule. Would the second violation penalty be high enough to deter them from doing this again? I mean, what if they come in and just say, well, hey, Edina, it's $500. You know, I'm going to make, 50 times that by being 40, 60.
Well, what you've got is the ability to go right to revocation. You don't have to give the second penalty.
Oh, you can go right to revocation, is that correct?
That is correct.
Oh, well, there you go.
If you look at,
But who's going to do that? I mean, from a practical standpoint.
Nobody we know.
Right.
Well, no, I'm not talking about the restaurateurs. I'm talking about people sitting up here. I'm talking about us. who's going to, let's say that we get to the 1 year mark and somebody's at 55, 45. Now what are we going to do?
But again, Member Sprague's question was about somebody who wasn't moving toward compliance.
Yeah.
If you get to the end of that first year, maybe you monitored it 6 months and things had budged, so it looked hopeful, and then you get to the end of the year and not so much, not at all.
I just want to make sure.
And then what do you do for that next year? So Attorney Knudsen, am I understanding that you are bound to license for another year?
No.
No.
Okay, that's,
Okay.
just
So
in
it would
case
be-
someone's in
But I
bad faith.
might have misunderstood. I might have misunderstood what Josh said.
I'm saying if a business is acting in bad faith, not good faith, and taking advantage of the system, how do we preclude them from doing that for another year? And I just got the answer. We can revoke.
That wasn't the thing I was perplexed about. What I was thinking was that we'd have a 1 year probationary license, they pay a $500 fine, we see progress towards compliance with the 60-40 rule or whatever the rule is, but then the second violation period would be in the second year, basically.
That's correct.
Is that was, so that's what you're all saying, okay? I wasn't,
Right, and for example, if
I
someone
wasn't
came
tracking
in
well enough with that.
after the first year and they came in and say they were
So that goes
just
to your.
a little bit below, 59, they have 59.5%. You could waive the fine if you chose, because they're making, that would be your choice.
Okay. All right.
I think our goal, when we look at this, at least what I hear from everyone, is that because restaurants make a huge financial decision to come and be in our town and redo the building or whatever it is to be a restaurant, that our goal is to work with them for up to 2 years in most cases, unless they flagrantly
Right.
don't comply, and then we have other options.
That's a nice, succinct way to put it.
Thank you. So I would support this, and I'll move it, and do you need it moved with the second? Give me the words for that. Waive second reading, thank you.
I'll second it, but I still have questions.
Okay, but
Okay,
that's
so
fine.
I've
But
said-
you're okay
yeah.
with waiving second reading?
I am.
We're in discussion mode.
Okay, so here are the questions. Going back to the other page, what is commission of a felony related to the licensed activity?
Oh, you mean the additional pages?
Well, there are
Oh.
2 pages. There's a matrix that stretches 2 pages, and
This is a violation
So what would
matrix
be an example
that
of-
encompasses all kinds of conduct. This doesn't really relate to what we're talking about, but it's an interesting point.
well, I had a lot of questions, actually, or several, so.
All right.
Well, we're only discussing that last piece of it.
So, well,
Isn't this
okay,
our current-
if you want to know
this
more
is
about the
our
penalty
current-
matrix
No,
as a whole, go
It's my
ahead.
understanding that we're taking a matrix that wasn't previously in an ordinance and putting it into an ordinance, am I correct?
No.
Just the last
You're,
slide.
you're taking,
Everything is
you're
in there
taking
already.
the penalty matrix that was previously historically adopted by resolution,
Right.
and you're putting it into an ordinance form, but the penalties themselves are the same as they've been in many previous years.
Well,
So
so I
everything
gave it,
prior to this is existing ordinance. So you're asking questions about the existing ordinances?
no, it's not, as manager
It's
Neal
not
just
existing.
explained, I think it's
Yeah.
not, it's existing policy, but it's not existing ordinance. So I read it like I read every ordinance amendment, and I just have some questions.
Okay.
So what would be an example?
Could we get a clarification? I'm still a little bit fuzzy here. So is it the way, is this entire matrix new, or is it just the last section that's new?
The only, let me answer this like this. The only thing that's new about the penalty matrix is the last section about failure to meet the 60/40 requirement.
Everything else is already in the ordinance.
It's not in the ordinance, it's in a council resolution.
Everything else has been previously reviewed and adopted by
Council resolution.
previous city council by resolution, not by ordinance.
Go to it.
Okay.
Go to it.
Okay. Question, what is a commission of a felony related to to the licensed activity? What would be an example of it? Because first violation revocation.
So you can't be a felony holder and have a liquor license, isn't that correct?
I'm looking at the attorney counsel. I believe an example would be a felony purchase of alcohol without using the retail license stamp.
Okay.
That's, first, there are probably thousands of possibilities. I have never seen it happen.
Right.
Okay.
But
But it's
City
serious
clerk
enough
mentions a possibility. I mean, I suppose if you, and I'm not an expert on this, if you have you're distilling, you have a moonshine business on the side, out of your basement or some, ridiculous thing. But I've never seen it revoked for something like that.
Sure,
But it's-
just again, caught my eye, it was top on the list, and it was a high penalty. Okay, then, what is the difference between sale of an alcoholic beverage to a person under the state-established drinking age and sale of alcoholic beverages to an underage person? One is in the third violation listed, and the other is 1, 2, 3, 4 violations below that. And they have very different penalties.
As far as I know, it's the same thing.
That's what I thought.
Which one of these is enforced?
So which one do we go with? Because one is about twice the penalties with the previous.
The second one is what we have been enforcing since 1999.
You mean the lower one?
The one that says sale of alcoholic beverages to underage person.
So we should delete the previous one, the one that is the third row.
Yeah, I'd say if you want to avoid the confusion.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well, it is also consistent with our previous discussion, because a 6-day suspension for an initial violation is way different from the penalty for the other. Okay.
Well, how about adult entertainment? Isn't that what we're doing at the restaurant, at the bar?
I think that's defined in our code.
That's a defined term.
I think that's defined in another section of our code.
Oh, okay, a defined
And if we
term.
have to repeat the definition here, we'll all blush.
All right, but I had a question on the next one, that, you were, as you're going methodically
Sure.
through there. Sale of intoxicating liquor are only licensed for 3.2% malt liquor, it's a revocation. And there's no, there's no grace period there.
Yeah, you violated your license.
Yep.
That's,
Because a 3.2 beer license is $500, and it requires a different level of liability insurance. An intoxicating on-sale license is $8,700 and has a whole different level of liability insurance with it.
So if you try to skirt the system to save money,
but it still seems a bit draconian to me for the
I
violation.
believe we took these, I don't think these are unusual for, we've never had a violation.
I don't know if you can even be a bit draconian, but I guess it seems pretty harsh.
It would seem to fit under one. If you're licensed for one activity and you've conducted another.
that's why it never happens, Mayor, because it's harsh.
That would be so unusual, because it would have to, you can understand how someone can potentially sell to an underage person that's bad, and, we deal with that. But if I have a 3.2 beer license and I'm selling a whiskey,
You know what you're doing.
you know what you're doing. That isn't an accident.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Anything else for you on that
That's it
page?
for me.
Okay, next page. So we have before hours sale of alcoholic beverages as distinguished from after hours consumption of alcoholic beverages. And what would be an example of consumption? Consumption by a patron, consumption by a staff member?
Yes.
All of the above. All of the above. Okay, that was the question on that one. Allowing a disorderly establishment halfway down the page, is that defined elsewhere in code?
Yes.
Okay. End of question on that one. I think that's it. Thank you.
Where was the hearing provision? Hearing notice, subdivision 2. Are we, have we got this crafted in a way where everybody in every category is entitled to a hearing on the fine? I know we've had folks in front of us on the fine before, on a revocation. Is there, Roger, are we making sure that we give everybody due process here?
Subdivision 2. No sanctions under this shall take effect until the licensee has been given the opportunity for hearing that has been held accordance with.
I just, I see that. I just want to make sure that we got everybody covered here.
like it.
All right. That's it for me. 2. No, you've done 2. All right. So we got a motion and a second, and we've got, is the change clear? We got a request for waiver of second reading, or that's part of the
Yep,
motion?
that's part of the motion.
And so we've
So
got
we'll have a roll
a
call.
first violation, $500 fine and 12-month probationary license. Second violation, $1,000 fine, 12-month probationary license. Further discussion? We need a roll call because we're going to waive second reading.
Member Brindle.
Aye.
Member Sprague.
Aye.
Member Swenson.
Aye.
Member Bennett.
Aye.
Mayor Hovland.
Aye. All right. Now, on to the next matter, which is a resolution 2012-33, which is a resolution that embodies the action of the council at the last council meeting denying the preliminary plat with multiple variances at 6109 Oaklawn Avenue. Any questions regarding the resolution, or is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All right, got a motion and a second. Discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. Next, we've got a series of items under E, pre-recodification ordinance amendments, and our Assistant City Manager, Karen Kurt, has a series of actions or proposed actions here. Karen?
Actually, I'm only prepared to talk on the last item, but I do believe staff members are here to review
I see
if you have
that,
any questions on the first two.
I see that we have Chief Shearer and Ms. Engelman here. Director Engelman. So go ahead and handle 8E1 for us, please.
So with regard to boards and commissions, a couple of items came up that during the course of reviewing bylaws that we felt were probably best addressed by making some amendments to the city code. And one has to do with establishing a definition of a quorum. And the second one has to do with how we deal with chairs and when a chair is appointed to fill a vacancy.
So do you want a motion on this?
Yes, I need a motion.
So moved. And do you want to?
I need a second. I need a second.
Second.
I got a motion. I got a second.
Second.
All right, now, discussion. Questions?
Waive second reading?
Yes, that's what I was trying to say.
Okay.
It was going to be in my motion. Is it okay for the second?
Yes.
I can adopt that. I'll accept that friendly amendment.
I think we should almost start over.
I was trying to say it, but you interrupted me.
Well,
yeah, Mary read your mind.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, we've got a, assume that the main motion encompasses the waiver of the second reading, and we have a second that endorses that.
Indeed.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Member Sprague.
Aye.
Member Swenson.
Aye.
Member Bennett.
Aye.
Member Brindle.
Aye.
Mayor Hovland.
Aye. Next matter, 8E2, Chief Shearer had this, and Steve, Director Kirschman is going to handle this for us.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. The item before us is some amendments to Chapter 4 relating to building and construction. Before we get started, some errors were pointed out to staff on the actual ordinance, and you were given a revised copy at the beginning of the meeting. So what we're asking here is to make some revisions to Chapter 4, Section 410, adds and deletes references to new or revised chapters in the state building code. They had some reorganization at the state level, and different departments are now in charge of handling different aspects of the code. And some code sections have been deleted and some added. Section 430, we have not licensed mechanical contractors for well over 10 years. We've been registering them. So this is changing the language of the ordinance to reflect that practice. 435, similar to some of the changes in 410 where it's just correcting references to the adopted code and the responsible departments at the state level. 440 removes a number of references to Minnesota OSHA regulations for which we are not responsible. Minnesota OSHA regulates those particular portions that were included in our code. And 470, most of that chapter is deleted. The reason we deleted those is because we have in the past used state statutes. Much of the language in our section 470 was the similar or the same as that included in the state statutes. And there were some sections of the two that conflicted with each other, so we deleted most of that. Questions?
Questions for Director Kirschman? Overall, the purpose of this is cleanup, trying to get things squared away.
Clean up and add some of the codes that have been adopted since our major code adoption in 2007.
On that last page in 47001, where you talk about dangers for substandard buildings, and the last part of that paragraph declares a building in certain conditions to be a public nuisance. Is the process for handling a piece of property that's a public nuisance described elsewhere in the code then in terms of what we do procedurally?
The procedure for handling, Roger, and I'm going to try and get this right, correct me if I'm wrong. The procedure for handling the buildings is laid out very clearly in the state statutes. I believe what the part of section 470 that we have changed also would allow us to handle that as a nuisance in addition to what the state statute allows us to do.
All right, so who declares it to be a public nuisance? The council on recommendation of staff or staff? How does that happen?
The way it works through state statutes is the building official would declare it a nuisance, and if they have a period, the property owner has a period of time to contest that, and if they contest it, then it goes to council. If they don't wish to contest it, then we start on the state statute procedures for remedying the situation.
Member Bennett.
Thank you. The process that you're describing where the council may order repair or removal is currently in the code, is it not? Following a lot of material that's being deleted, and so there's a renumbering of that provision as new 470.02.
That section would be renumbered to 470.02. That's
okay.
correct.
Okay.
So that's being retained and just
that's correct.
Renumbered to follow immediately after new 470.01.
Exactly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? All right. We have a motion on this matter with a waiver of second reading.
Waiver of second reading. Second.
All right. Discussion. Roll call.
Member Bennett?
Aye.
Member Brindle?
Aye.
Member Sprague? Aye. Member Swenson? Aye. Mayor Hovland?
Aye. And then Administrator Engelmann, Sherry Engelmann, has the next matter involving a proposed ordinance amendment concerning noise, ventilation, and swimming pools.
Mayor
Welcome, Ms.
Hublin
Engelmann.
and council members, couple simple things. Chapter 4 on swimming pools, Chapter 7 on underground parking garages, Chapter 10 on our noise ordinance. Basically, Chapter 4 and Chapter 10 are both language updates to be consistent with state statutes. Chapter 7 is a little bit different with regard to requirement for inspections. Currently, the city is allowed to inspect. However, there's also a small clause that would allow an outside third party to go and inspect. That causes us some issues because, one, we don't know if they have made a complete list of inspection requirements. We don't, we are then responsible for reviewing that, and if there is an issue that needs enforcement, we have to take over and do the enforcement. In the meantime, the independent contractor receives the money to do the inspection. The city does not. They can write the report and they're done. They don't do the follow-through and the enforcement. So this way, if we take on all of the inspections, we have the total comprehensive program. We do the inspection, we know everything is on the list, and we follow through with the enforcement. We have money to pay for the programming. So it's consistent for us. So those are the 3 changes to ordinance that we present. Questions?
Questions for Administrator Engelmann? All right. Is there a motion and a second and a waiver of second reading?
So move.
Moved and seconded, we adopt ordinance changes embodied in 2012-8 and a waiver of second reading. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Member Bennett?
Aye.
Member Brindle?
Aye.
Member Sprague? Aye. Member Swenson? Aye. Mayor Hublin?
Aye. All right, next, resolution 2012-32, accepting various donations.
So move.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed say nay. Carried. This is a resolution accepting donations on behalf of the city of Edina. And there are donations in this period to the Edina Arts Center, and then one to the Edina Police Department from Hennepin County in the sum of $25,000. That's a payment for the participation, I take it, in the Southwest Hennepin County Drug Task Force distribution. Oh, no, excuse me. These are forfeiture cases where they have sold property, and this is our aliquot share of the proceeds of those sales. So $25,000 from sale of seized property by the county. All right, that information will be on the website shortly. And now, correspondence and petitions. Do we have anything else other than what is on the dais this evening? Okay. And Mayor and Council comments. I think this week we start with Member Sprague.
Wow, I'm up first, huh? I'm looking for some pictures. Do you have those pictures still?
Oh, dear.
Oh, man.
Don't worry, there's nothing embarrassing to anyone sitting on the dais. These are from, yeah. I just wanted to start off by saying many of us attended the Living Streets seminar at Braemar Golf Clubhouse. And it was a very exciting seminar, to coin a phrase the mayor used earlier. I was giddy to be there and see all the exceptional things that can be done with this philosophy. And basically, it is complete streets, so multimodal street design combined with stormwater management practices, beautification, and design that can help get people involved in active transportation. And one of the charts that we saw during the presentation was a chart showing correlating obesity rates and active transportation modes in European countries compared to the U.S. So if we have the graphic, it'll make more sense. But the long and short of it is that there's in the countries that have more active use of bikes and walking facilities and less auto, they have a corresponding lower rate of obesity. And what was amazing is that in, here it goes right here. So if you look over here, the black is walk, the amount of, I can't remember what the 22 is the amount of, I'm trying to remember from the study, anyhow, walking facilities. 25 is the white part in the various charts is our bike facilities, and then the gray on the top is mass transit. So in the Netherlands, where most of people's transportation is done through biking and walking, and in Switzerland, where they walk a lot. I mean, look at that. Those two countries, if you go to the next slide, actually have the lowest rate of obesity. Contrawise, in the United States, where we have the lowest amount of active transportation trips, that's what it was, percentage of total trips allocated to walking, biking, and transit. In the U.S., we have the highest rate of obesity and, as I said, the lowest percentage of trips allocated to walk, bike, and transit, mass transit. So yet another reason to pursue vigorously this Living Streets design criteria, this policy that we've been talking about adopting. And I think it has a real connection to Dewtown and the healthy living initiatives we're working on, and I'm excited to see these endeavors move forward. Second item is a question for Manager Neal. I see in some of our the correspondence from the city that I've received recently that the email convention has changed to first letter of the first name and then last name at edinamn.gov. And I also see the old convention at ci.edina.mn.us. So my first question is the new convention already in play? So when I'm telling people to email the council, they can send it to edinamail@edinamn.gov.
No. It is for employees. Is it for council members
To
as well?
simplify the web mail, we've simply made that email address mail@edinamn.gov. But yes, edinamail@ci.edina.mn.us will continue to work if you've memorized that one.
Okay,
both addresses for employees will work for at least the next year. That's been the transition time that we've set for.
So we can change over all of your email addresses now to @edinamn.gov and tell constituents to email the council at mail@edinamn.gov. That is a lot easier. All right, good. So, and then the third thing is just the mayor, when we were talking about the liquor licenses, you said something about important commercial residents, and I thought that was a great way to describe our businesses that you don't often hear. We forget that they're residents here doing business. And Mary, you talked about the synergy between the business and the residents, and I also think about all of the great discussions we had during the Grandview planning process about the synergy between residents and businesses. So I think it's important to continue to recognize that. That is what makes Edina a great place to be. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, I just want to thank Scott and Karen for our retreat Friday night and Saturday afternoon. It was great to work together, and I appreciate the time that you've given to us, so thank you.
Thank you. Member Bennett.
Thank you. I also was fortunate to be able to attend the Living Streets workshop, the public meeting the evening before that several members of the community were able to attend, and then also to stay for the the initial policy brainstorming session, and was really impressed with the progress that was made in that day, and also people from residents the evening before on Valentine's Day who came out for a presentation on Living Streets, and those who participated the next day in both learning about and starting to talk about what that looks like in Edina. And one of the pieces of information that we were given on both evenings, or both the evening and the following day, is that Living Streets are intended to serve all users in a city, all ages, all income levels, all neighborhoods, that they are intended to connect people, they're intended to enhance neighborhoods, foster active lifestyles, be sustainable, provide some, for instance, handling of stormwater, be inviting places, support healthy commerce. There's definitely a part of it that serves those commercial residents that were spoken about just a while ago. And finally, vary in character. Not all features will serve all streets. And also, I'm grateful for the retreat. Thank you. It was very productive, I thought. Very, very good use of time. And also appreciated the work sessions earlier this evening, which I think also were very productive. Finally, 2 snow questions. We haven't had much of it this winter. We did have a piece of correspondence that highlighted some of, that discussed some noise that can be created by early snow removal. And I did look at the code, and it looks like that is exempt, and I don't know if we've had discussion about that before. It's not to make it difficult, and certainly the city plows have to get out when they get out so people can leave in the mornings, but I did understand the residents' concern. And then also have noted that there have been some mentions in at least the Star Tribune about what the crews have been busy doing in Minneapolis when they haven't been engaged in snow removal this winter, and I had a caller ask about that today.
They've been cleaning the streets.
All right.
I can tell you what they've been doing because I've watched them. They've been over a large part of Edina, actually, doing street cleaning.
Good, good, thank you. And that was also a
I'm sure.
and then possibly even, thank you.
I think what I'd like to do is I will prepare just a brief report for you about the kinds of things they've been working on since they haven't had much snow to remove. But we'll do that.
That would be great. Thank you.
Director Benarott.
We are also currently running a story on that very topic on the current episode of Agenda Edina, so be sure to check that out.
Great, thank you.
Part and parcel of that story may be getting a little indication of how much money we've saved this winter on snow plowing.
Yeah, that too.
At least so far. The scene may change here.
Could all make up for it.
Member Brendel.
Thank you. I have a couple things. The Southdale YMCA, I don't know, Josh, has there been a grand opening yet? Is there a plan for a grand opening?
Grand opening is in actually next month.
Okay.
Because they're still kind of making some tweaks around the building.
Okay. As a member of Edina Morningside Rotary Club, we are having our meeting there next week, so I'm very excited to see the new space. In the commission minutes, I noted that the Edina Transportation Commission, one of the student members resigned from the commission, and so I will just ask the question. I did ask the chair of the commission whether she felt we should replace that student commissioner, and she said, well, if you want to, if there's somebody there. There's currently a young man named Stephen who we remember from the interviews is passionate about transportation, and she alluded as much when I talked to her about it, that he has great questions, he's prepared, and she loves having him there. And she's fine with one student, or if there is a student, if we look back at our student applications and see that there is a student interested in transportation, we might consider filling that seat, because we have yet, March, April, May, we have 3 months that student would serve. So that's a possibility that we can consider. On the Dewtown front, I attended the Bloomington Rotary meeting on Monday, noon of this week, where the program at that Rotary meeting was the introduction of Dewtown in Bloomington. So I was there with my notebook taking notes of how Bloomington announced their Dewtown, so we know what to say when we do it here. But basically, they gave kind of a 3-point presentation between the mayor and Dr. Mark Manley, who is with Blue Cross Blue Shield's prevention group, and then back to the mayor about what Dewtown is and specifically what Bloomington is doing, and they have some things they're doing. Interestingly, one of the ordinances that they are working on to pass soon is one that relieves traffic congestion and emissions. So that part of a healthy city, I thought it would be an interesting ordinance to see what they have in the ordinance and how they can go about controlling congestion. Tour de Edina community bike ride, we are starting to work on that. And this year's bike ride looks like we've already started talking about combining it with an open streets kind of event where we would close a street and just celebrate the street, meet on the sidewalk, to use Marsha Buchak's phrase, and have a little fun with that. I'm certain there would be a bike ride involved with it, but because we have cyclists who don't want to give that up, and we may include it as a broader community fitness event and have it be an open street celebration. Minneapolis had a very successful open streets event on a Sunday afternoon from 1 to 5, closing Lyndale between 22nd and 42nd. And if they can do that, we can do it here. I don't know if you saw the little news piece about Duluth, and it's not a romantic city, or it's low on the list of romantic cities. Well, so I Googled most romantic places in Minnesota. So I'm going down, I have 73 pages. Fortunately, I only had to go to page 3 to find one from Edina, and it was number 24, is the Edina Art Center. Friendly teachers and good classes, welcoming, warm, supportive environment in which to learn new skills or perfect ones you already have. The staff and instructors are excellent. So I figured that was pretty good out of 73 pages to be number 24. There were other Edina things down the list, but I thought that deserved some notice. And thank you for all the hours and hours of preparation for the retreat this weekend. It was productive. I came away from it with lots of things on my list to feel good about and learn more about and know that we're going to work on together. So I appreciate everything we do together.
And one of those other things we learned at the retreat, sometimes that's just the way life be.
Yeah, it's true.
So I left my calendar in my coat in the hallway. I can't recount all the regional stuff I've been working on in the last 2 weeks, but I do want to applaud, as Member Bennett did, the Edina Transportation Commission for their work on the Living Streets project. Seeing a good 50 people or so show up on Valentine's Day evening was impressive, and we had a nice conversation there and a good kickoff with a fellow from Seattle and another guy from Los Angeles that are experts in the field. I'm really proud of our council for passing that Southwest LRT resolution this evening. It's really critical that we have that $25 million in the bonding bill for preliminary engineering for the state's share. This is an extraordinary project. It'll be the busiest LRT line in the state, I think, by far, if it gets built. So here we are in preliminary engineering on a $1.2 billion project that the federal government is going to pay for half of it if we get it all done. The county's Transit Improvement Board is going to pay a third of it. Hennepin County is going to pay 10%, and the state's share is only 10% of a total cost of $1.2 billion. And we're having trouble holding, we've got $100 million from the federal government, I think, in the county's Transit Improvement Board to do preliminary engineering, and we're having a hard time holding that $25 million in the bonding bill. Something is wrong over at the legislature, mighty wrong. I was a few minutes late to our meeting at 4:30 because I got invited over to see the robotics team. They were they were crating up, sealing up their gizmo. They're participating in this national contest. I think they go to the regions first, and the general qualifications were you had to build a machine that would both pick up and shoot a basketball. And so they've got something that looks like a big erector set, I mean, that they've designed in 6 weeks. These students over there have designed this incredible machine that moves around. It's on tracks like a tank. It pulls up basketballs. You can hear the pump working, and it shoots the basketball out the top. And they have to aim it at a basketball hoop. And, you know, they're all ready for these competitions. It was impressive. So my congratulations to all of them and all their advisors that work with them.
All in the last month of AP classes. That's
Yeah,
huge.
there's some phenomenal
That is
young people
huge.
over there. So,
You know, I have a bandana from that robotics team. I don't know why, but I wear it at the Y. Is
green
that what it was?
machine.
Yeah. I wear it proud.
you're kind of the green machine.
Yeah.
They came here.
It looks cool. Reminds me of Loverboy from the 1980s. So it's that's, you know, I'm from the 80s.
There's the picture, maybe.
Wow. I didn't.
Everybody's working for the weekend, right?
I didn't really want to end the meeting with that image.
We're not done yet.
So, let's see. We had a Center for Transportation Studies meeting last week. That was close enough in time. We haven't. Yeah, we got to go there yet. As soon as we wrap up this meeting, we got to reconvene as the Edina Housing and Redevelopment Authority. So don't go too far after we adjourn. And we've got Manager Neal's comments now.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a couple of things. We are done with outside ice in our parks for the year. Ironically, the snow did them in. Depending on weather.
Yes.
Right, obviously, yeah, but we will do our best there. We still have a liquor store under construction, under improvement on York. We expect it to be completed and back into sales around March 12th is the target date. Redistricting maps are out. If you haven't seen them, there's a little bit of change for Edina, not too much, but a little bit. Congratulations tonight on the final approval of the financing for the first Emerald Energy project, and we're happy that went through. We have a March 20th joint meeting, or we may have a joint meeting with the Park Board on the evening of March 20th. That is for the council's work session. We have two items on that tentative agenda that night, the Edinburgh study and the Sports Dome study, coming progress reports back to the council. At the last meeting of the Park Board wanted to do this as a joint meeting and has made that request to council. And if that meets with your support, we will probably do that in here just because we'll have a large number of Park Board and council members, and we probably will have audience members that night too. Redistricting. We're going to talk about redistricting.
Okay.
Finally, I also wanted to thank council members for all of your participation in the retreat. I think we thought it was a really good use of Karen and I, of our time, and we appreciated all your time that you put into it as well. We thought it was a very nice weekend. And that's, we're doing State of the Community tomorrow.
That's right.
And Monday. So tomorrow at Interlochen at 11:30. And on Monday at 7 o'clock here. Right? PM. Yep. And that's all I have for you.
All right, great. Anything else? Don't leave. We've got some Edina Housing Redevelopment Authority work to do, but the council meeting is adjourned. Calling now calling to order the Edina Housing and Redevelopment Authority. Roll call, please, Ms. Mankin.
Commissioner Bennett?
Here.
Commissioner Brindle?
Here.
Commissioner Sprague?
Here.
Commissioner Swenson?
Here.
Commissioner?
Commissioner Pavlin?
Here. We have some minutes to approve from the regular meeting on January 17. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. We approve the minutes of the HRA for the regular meeting of January 17, 2011. Discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. And then this is a direct relationship to the matter we approved at the council, which is the Southeast Edina redevelopment plan, the proposed modification of the tax increment financing plan for the Centennial Lakes Tax Increment Financing District. We need a favorable vote of the majority of the commissioners present to approve it. It's Resolution 2012-3. Is there a motion?
3-1.
3-1. This is 3. The council was 3-1, I think. All right. Do we have a motion?
So moved. Does it need to include the map that we modified?
We didn't modify the map, though, did we?
Yeah.
No,
the motion, is there a motion that would include the most flexible plan encompassing the area that was approved by the council?
Which?
I will move this matter with amending the project area to include as described in our previous motion.
I just want to make sure that I understand what map we approved. Councilmember Brindle proposed alternative 1, and then we amended alternative 1 with Councilmember Sprague's proposal, which essentially took it back to the proposal that was advertised, right? So
correct.
Right. Correct. Okay. So the full proposal.
Full proposal.
Right. Okay.
As advertised.
Right.
Okay, correct. We have a motion.
Second.
All right, let's do it that way. We got a motion and a second. Discussion.
I had Member Swenson making the motion.
I tried to, but he wanted to do it, so I seconded it.
Okay.
It's late. I don't care.
She's not into private authorship.
No.
It never has been. It's okay. We got a motion and a second. Discussion, and all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay.
Nay.
Carried. And that concludes the work of the HRA, and we stand adjourned.
Pancakes. 10 o'clock. Perfect.
No, I'm going to.